Yes. Am I on? Am I on? 1, 2, 1, 2. What? 1, 2, 1, 2. Should I do it? Get you guys in the mood? Yeah, I'm gonna do it before I start. We might do a little, couple heavy things. But one of the joints that we've been playing last week, I've been playing all week. So I'm gonna do a little copyright on myself, probably cut it out later, but hit you guys with some good vibes, man. And then we'll get into what we're gonna get into. Happy Friday. Last Call Podcast. In the house. Yeah. What up? Beautiful Bernice. It is in the
I may never live to see my name in life.
What up?
On a Carnegie Hall marquee. Oh, but that's alright. Lord, that's alright with me. I'm as happy as a man can be. Folks in New York may never know my name. I may not wear that music on fame. Gonna keep on singing my song just the same. If I don't make it there, I won't be ashamed. 'Cause I'm a star in the ghetto. If I never break Broadway, then I'm gonna keep on shining. I don't care what the folks are saying.
Got
to say, oh no, Hollywood will never be my style.
But you know, I'm toning that down. But
Just all right.
last week we did Blue Eyed Soul, and this was just one of the group's average white bands. I wasn't sure they had a whole project with Ben E. King, but they did. It was a chance encounter that they had in Miami, and they decided to put some tracks. Now, rumor has it that they were actually in talks with Marvin Gaye with this project, and it fell through, or whatever. They lost contact, and Benny King had filled the shoes for this project as well. But, you know, regardless, it was a nice little track that I came across when I was doing the Blue Eyed Soul stuff last week, and just kind of kept playing it all week, you know, kind of that kind of vibe. So dig it up, play it if you get around to it. What up? Happy Friday, party people. Anybody listening? Beautiful Bernice in the house, the main man Tiz, and the OG Emmanuel Briggs. Welcome, man. I hope your weeks were good. We are back here. Welcome to the Last Call Podcast here on Friday night, as we're going to do something a little bit different. Welcome, man. Do me a favor before we start, though. Like, share, and subscribe as we jump into what we are about to jump into this week. Man, June already, June 6th. Hope your week is going good as we step into the weekend. going to go through a couple things here. I decided, actually, I don't even know if it's going to work out the way that I want it to work out, but I wanted to try it anyway, man. Getting back to some of the things that I used to do, I understand we don't have Josephine this week, man, which is okay. We got Tiz. I'll drop a link later on when we start doing what I intend to do tonight. And it's a little different, and it's a little serious. And then me saying that also, let me turn this down. In me saying that, I want to direct your attention to a video that I dropped this week. And I know not a lot of people even were able to see it. I know I dropped it not too long ago. And I know y'all got busy lives, man. I'm not saying you don't, because you do. We all do. But this was one, I'm just going to play it in the background as I talk over here. And I mean, if you haven't seen it, I hope you go by and you do check it out. The video that I'm talking about or in question is the one labeled Jocelyn Smith. Now, since I already made a video and it's already posted out there, I will encourage you guys to please go check it out. Check out all my stuff. Do me a favor, subscribe, check out the catalog. I'm building up a little thing there with it. But this is the story in South Africa about the 6-year-old girl whose mother, boyfriend, and some other guy sold her into sex trafficking or slavery. It's a very sad story because all around, not in cases like this where I have a whole bunch of sympathy for the mother who actually allowed this to happen, but this has tales of drug addiction, abuse, spousal abuse, domestic abuse, out of desperation, has the coloration, has the objectification parts in that as well. And it's just a very sad story of leading up to one of the things that I got from this, a couple of the things, as you see there in the background. Those are the 3 accused, charged, and now sentenced individuals. Yeah, man, real life monsters indeed. So the addiction is one thing, depending on what your beliefs. People call it a disease. People with diseases that they don't voluntarily ask for will tell you that it's not a disease, as well. There's the abuse factor, domestic abuse of that. There's now I forgot the name, Simona or something. Basically translates into the witch doctor who actually sold this girl into trafficking. So up until now, they don't know if the girl is alive or unalived. The rumor was that she was wanted for her skin and her bright eyes. It's not enough to charge those 3 individuals, because what it reveals is that there's still a system that if you're into this kind of stuff, if you're desperate enough, if you have no heart, or indeed you are an actual real life monster, that you could go to the source, the system, the syndicate, provide a child that they'll take away and do whatever the hell they did to Jocelyn Smith. And yeah, this is a tough one because I hate it when we don't protect children like we're supposed to. This mother didn't keep it a secret. She told everybody, up to the teacher knew and heard, to the hairdresser knew and heard the plans that her mother planned to sell her daughter off. And it's just a rough thing all around. I guess partial justice is given, that these guys were given life in jail, No death sentence because they don't know what happened, right? They can't produce a being, a person, or anything. So they did whatever they could do. What they could prove, at least, is the trafficking. Um, and why this witch doctor guy gets immunity is the other part of that too, man. Anyway, go check this out. The least that we could do, make sure you say her name, Jocelyn Smith. And yes, this is a case in South Africa, but this happens, like I said, all around the world, right? Happens in America here. Every state. There is a larger program, call it, system, call it, whatever you want, syndicate, call it that the low-level people feed into it. So the problem doesn't go away at the low level of arresting these individuals that were involved. All right. There's still more people to locate and bring to justice. So maybe this will open up. The mother hasn't spoken about the whereabouts and anything else with that. But, maybe in years she will crack and be able to say something. As a mother, like the lady in the beginning of the video, as she's crying, she says something very prevalent, like the mother in you should at least allow you to cooperate now, So what's preventing her? Maybe her being away from the other two so-called men involved in the case will allow her a little freedom to speak without any threat from them as well. All right. Yeah, it was a tough one. And this was just a tough one to do. The more I read and even hearing the women scream out, just the mother in you. Come on, man. Say something. Do something. And as adults, as men, women, we do have to keep that extra eye open, right? If we see anything that's not right, the school knew, hairdressers knew, people around the community. The mother apparently, before she disappeared, wanted to try to give money. I don't know how much money she thought she was really getting, because rumors are that the converted amount that she was trying to make the sale for, or whatever transaction for, was as low as 275 American dollars to 1,000, and she's there thinking she could pay, which also might show, the deterioration of the brain, thinking that, after you get high or whatever, your immediate needs that you're going to have so much money to do this, that, the other, and you're just not. So, very sad one that I just wanted to highlight before we get moving a little later on here, or not even a little later on, but right now. That was another thing that I said, Emmanuel, with that as well. The shock and horror that poor baby must have felt, realizing what was happening to her and who was doing it, right? The handing over is horrific enough. But God, now being released into that system, and that's the part that just shakes me, man. Then they're treating her like a, whatever, maybe even like an animal, or just stuck with the others that they have to put into the system as well. Like, what a terrible freaking thing. And the thing about that picture, the one that you see there on the screen also, is just, there's no more of a childlike picture than you could see with that. Just the wonder in the eyes, the bright eyes, the optimism, the peace, the innocence taken away, man. Fucking, what is wrong with people? Whew. All right. So I know we're starting Friday like this, but we are also moving on for something else that I want to do. So since I'm chilling here, and I'll put up the link for anybody that wants to join me up here later on as well, as soon as we get into the groove of things, I sort of wanted to go back to a few things, got a few course that we want to do and that I want to do, subjects that I first start out with. Now, if you remember a while ago, only part of a segment of a show, I wanted to highlight the Kendrick Johnson case. Remember Kendrick Johnson? They rolled up in a mat, and they family still hasn't had justice. As a matter of fact, they've been punished for trying to seek justice for their child versus granted any cooperation with that. I want to go on to something else. If my math is correct over here, it's been about 36 years for this case, and we're going to dig into it in a few ways here. And, fair use, but also I don't know if this is going to work, to tell you the truth, as far as this isn't back in the Wild West days where you could play anything that you want. I want to try to play this documentary and get into it and have some commentary about it. But first, here's a little ad. So while we get into it, here we go. Fair use.
I want us to remember what happened that day and be horrified by ourselves.
New York in the late 1980s was a completely schizophrenic, divided city.
New York's now the capital of racial violence.
If I had more bullets, I would have shot them all again and again.
Criminality, gang wars, drug wars. We were supposed to be afraid. It would have been irrational not to be afraid.
Off with the camera, man!
Last night, a woman jogger was found unconscious and partially clothed in Central Park. She was beaten and sexually assaulted.
A woman jogging in Central Park. Central Park was holy. It was the crime of the century.
Five youths were arrested at 96th Street, all between 14 and 15 years of age.
They got him!
You can only imagine the pressure to have this crime solved and solved quickly.
First we was all together, then they started to put us in different rooms separately.
What did you do? Who were you with? Who did you come with?
The tone was very scary. I felt like they might take us to the back of the precinct and kill us.
You're not gonna go home until you give up a story.
I told my son, go to the park that night. I feel guilty.
I'm telling the guy, I don't know what you're talking about. They're getting a little angry.
And they're like, you did it, didn't you?
He had been interrogated for over 24 hours. That amounts to pressure.
These young men were guilty. It was almost unquestioned.
The police controlled the story. They created the story.
They seized on the fears of the people, wilding the bestial characterization of the black man.
There's no DNA match whatsoever to any of these boys.
I was going nuts. No blood on the kids. Nobody could identify them, but if they confessed, and that was that.
A lot of people didn't do their jobs. Reporters, police, prosecutors, defense lawyers. This was institutional protectionism.
We falsely convicted them, and we walked away from our crime.
Yes. Now thinking, beautiful Bernice, I know you remember. This is a tough one. So tonight, man, I want to talk about the Central Park 5, but more specific, I'm sorry, let me correct myself. I want to talk about the Exonerated 5. And I will be saying Central Park 5 for a while as we go through this towards the end, but make note of it right now. And after we complete this, they must be referred to as the Exonerated 5. All right. They're free names. They're exonerated names that they didn't even deserve in the first place. Now, couple reasons why I want to check this out. We've checked out footage before. We went through some cases before. This is a rather lengthy thing to go through. And I'm aware if we're even allowed to do this, to tell you the truth, I have it. I just don't know if there's going to be any copyright stopping me from doing this. So reason why I want to do this You have probably heard of the Netflix movie When They See Us. And I was so surprised and unaware that so many people never saw the documentary that was made a few years before this. All right. I think I just ran across the documentary. It may have been on Prime or something like that. And again, this is kind of back in the days, maybe 15-ish years, 15-ish, 20, when things just started streaming. And you didn't have to subscribe to everything to be able to see things. So nobody had the rights to anything on there. So I kind of remembered it. And I wasn't living in New York at that time, but my family is there. And I remember my uncle was so adamant about not, because that's what we would do. You go to Central Park. We lived in Brooklyn. Nothing seemed that far away, like a bike ride or anything. It drives me nuts to think how free we had it back. We wouldn't even send our kids as far and not knowing what time they were coming back. These days, as free as our parents let us be back in those days. But the summer was just very different. I believe the summer of '89, and we're going to get all the information here. And I'm, just kind of doing a little setup before we get into this and start our commentary and watching. And I hope you guys watch very closely, and I hope that you listen very closely to this as well. Like I'm saying, this was the documentary. Now, a couple things about this documentary. If you know anything about PBS, if you know anything about the documentaries on PBS, specifically the World War IIs, specifically the civil rights documentaries, you know that the one person or one of the main people behind that is a man by the name of Ken Burns. All right. Ken Burns is you talk about people, you'd want to sit down and have a meal with, this, that, the other. Ken Burns would be one of those dudes. All right. It's also said that he revolutionized some way of filming documentaries that is very common today, doing like the still pictures and some other things that he did. If you ever go back now, and I recommend that you do, if you ever go back to watch a Ken Burns documentary, you'll never be disappointed about anything. You'll never be short of amazed, satisfied that all the details are there. And really, if you just have a second to Google his name or Wikipedia and see all the things that he's behind, you'll be like, holy shit, that was this dude. And you'll be amazed at how much things that he does here. Very thorough. You could bet you're getting all sides of the information here. Now, I happen to know this case very well and a few of the details also. I'm just going to fast forward because I think there's something in this of how this even came about. So Ken Burns has a daughter by the name of Sarah Burns. Sarah Burns was a legal assistant. So happens that Sarah Burns was a legal assistant surrounding the Central Park 5 case and was privy to this information in all the notes that had to do with this case. So she would collect all the notes, go through all the stories, go through the testimonies and everything like this. And she would bring a lot of these notes back to her father, Ken Burns, saying like, hey, this would make a good book or something like that. Ken Burns, being Ken Burns, is like, write something, see how it goes. But he started picking up the notes with this as well. And they started looking at this thing of the case and decided to make a documentary of the events that they were then witnessing. I don't know. Yeah, I guess I want to put that question out there, Emmanuel. Has anybody seen this documentary? I know you're familiar with the movie when it came out on Netflix because it really brought a lot of that to light. But as good as the Netflix docuseries was, it didn't really do justice to how this documentary by Ken and Sarah Burns did, which we're going to get into right now. I know I'm talking a lot. So I'm going to play this. I'm going to see how much I could get away with playing this. I will stop and talk every once in a while to bring some context to it, you know, a little bit of my opinion. It is very lengthy. That's the only thing I'm afraid of. So it's very possible that this could only be part one this week. It may have to continue it a following week or a following day because there's so much in this. So I'm going to play whatever I'm allowed to play until they stop me. So let's just get into it, man. The Exonerated 5. I think this does a good job of opening the case, tells you some detail in here, really tells you a lot more about the accused individuals, and way better than the movie is ever gonna could ever present that case. So here we go, man. Let's check it out. April 19th, 1989, jogger was brutally beaten and raped in New York City's Central Park. 5 teenagers, those are the names: Antron, Kevin, Yusuf, Raymond, and damn, I missed the other one. I'm sorry. 5 of them. Antron McCrae, he never really makes an appearance, so they're just saying that his voice is recorded and you won't necessarily see a lot of him. Drop that one. Let me know if you could hear, please.
I showed them the top of the entrance, the direction she came by. I showed them when she made a turn. I showed them where I picked up a tree branch.
Thank you.
And down the road where I stroke over there with the tree branch, and where I dragged the branch. She just kept moaning, you know, and stopping and grabbing her head, you know, that she was in pain and all that, you know. She was bleeding. I can't explain to you what happened after I left Bed Out Park that night, but I can guarantee you that there was no way these kids saw this woman come in or have an idea of where she was coming from. I'm the one that did this.
Ready?
Yeah.
Approximately 1:30 this morning, 2 males walking through Central Park north of the 102nd Street jogging path found a female. She was still alive, and in fact still is alive. The female was clad only in a bra. She was lying exposed in the area, appeared to have been exposed for a couple of hours. Her body temperature was down very low. Around her mouth is an article of clothing that was wrapped around her face, and the same article was used to bind her wrists to her face. She had been struck around the head repeatedly, mud on her body. She appears to have been dragged through the woods north into the shrub area. She was taken to Metropolitan Hospital, where she's classified as in serious condition.
I look back at the jogger case and wish I had been more skeptical as a journalist. You know, a lot of people didn't do their jobs. Reporters, police, prosecutors, defense lawyers. This was a proxy war being fought. And these young men were the proxies for all kinds of other agendas. And the truth and the reality and justice were not part of it.
I want you to think of Mr. Donald Trump while you watch this as well.
You give us 22 minutes.
To fight back again.
Bulls are galloping.
Do you have a passport, Mr. Gotti?
Given the alarming spread of AIDS,
fight back again.
You don't like it? You're fired. A savage racial attack in the middle-class neighborhood of Howard Beach.
A mob of whites attacked 3 black men.
The mayor of New York called it a racial lynching.
Off with the camera, man!
New York, under-policed city with crime out of control.
The criminal justice system isn't working.
They call him the subway vigilante. Getz bent over one of his wounded victims and said, "You don't look too bad, here's another."
If I had more bullets, I would have shot them all again and again.
It's about time someone stood up for himself.
25-year-old Michael Stewart.
16-year-old Yusuf Hawkins.
Where 67-year-old Eleanor Bumpers lived until police came to evict Victor and ended up killing her.
New York's now the capital of racial violence.
You want to use the gun, we'll use the gun.
None of us is safe. Even if you lock yourself behind doors.
There's now a new level of random violence in this city.
It's intolerable, and this city will rise up in its wrath against those who perpetrate monstrosity.
Harlem, 1989. My neighborhood, it's a small neighborhood. When I was younger, all the kids said it was the suburbs of Harlem. It was like 3 different projects around my neighborhood. Raymond Santana, Kevin Richardson, Corey Wise, Yusuf Salaam. I didn't know them, but I seen them around my neighborhood.
I lived in the Bronx at one time, and the Bronx is more quiet life, you know. Even though it was the projects, it was very secluded. Everybody knew each other. When I moved to Harlem, Harlem was very fast-paced. Everything moved fast. The cars moved fast, the people, the lingo. It was a big culture shock.
I was the only child. And me and my mother, we was close. Well, my father was my best friend. I thought he's like a superhero. He coached all my little league teams. He's a great teacher. I played shortstop. I played pitcher.
Oh, shit.
And literally, you get to play
Rookie
outfield.
mistake. Rookie mistake. I just realized the microphone was off. All I said was McRae is the guy that you won't see a lot of. He didn't do as much media stuff as the other guys did. All right, I'll try not to do that again.
Catcher. And my favorite position was shortstop.
Hold it, freeze, now.
My dad is from Puerto Rico. My mother's a mix of Puerto Rican and black. So my dad's like light-skinned Puerto Ricans, and my mother's side was more like dark-skinned. You know, so we had like a festival for us.
I used to ride skateboards. I used to play things like hide and go seek, and used to run around with a lot of the people from the neighborhood.
As a kid, I knew Yusuf, and like myself, he was a good kid. He had him and his family had just moved into the Schomburg complex.
Corey and Yusuf, we grew up in the same building. So, of course, I seen them around, and our parents knew each other from just day to day.
It was my mother, my sister, and my brother. And my mother was a single parent teaching at Parsons University. She encouraged all of us to do good work, good quality work, whatever we did.
When I was a kid, I had a little hearing problem. I just found myself just ignoring it to the point where it affected my life.
I grew up with a big family. A lot of women in my family. My mother plus 4 sisters.
He's the baby, and he was treated as such. And, Mama's only boy out of 5 children and the baby. So So he was just our hearts, like joy, everybody's.
At that time, I was just getting into music, watching videos. MTV Raps was kind of big, so we watched that. We would record the videos and we would watch them over and over and over all day. You know, my dad would come in the house and say, "You still watching that video from when I left?" You know, that's how far my range was. I think that I was at that point of coming into who I was, you know, but I never really got there.
New York in the late 1980s was a completely schizophrenic, divided city. There was enormous wealth gushing into the city out of the rise of the financial industries, which had surged beginning around 1980. So the city that had been in a big collapse for several decades had turned around. But there was a whole side to the city in which drug gangsters and crack and a kind of hard, permanently locked underclass was in place. And there was enormous suffering. It was as if there was a social moat that divided these two New Yorks.
The city, when I came in, was on the edge of bankruptcy, and people thought we would not recover.
We were a city coming out of a series of crises, enormous economic crisis, a school system that was in collapse, political institutions that seemed to be failing the people and not meeting their needs, old, fashionable, beautiful, noble neighborhoods falling apart.
And of course, overriding was crime.
Several things happened to me that I just considered normal part of living in New York City. A couple of muggings and near muggings, and I didn't even report any of these things. Just kind of figured it's the way it is.
People had it worked out in their heads that their block was safe. The streets they walked to get to the subway to go to work, they were okay. Their subway line, they got on the same spot on the train every day. That was okay. They had figured out a safe path through this, garden of terrors.
And then in about '84, crack came to New York City, and that increased crime. No question about it.
When the crack wars happen, all of a sudden, teenagers have lots of cash and guns. And all hell breaks loose in Bedford-Stuyvesant. All hell breaks loose in Harlem. All hell breaks loose in Brownsville, East New York. We were supposed to be afraid. It would have been irrational not to be afraid. But the people who suffered most with the rise of criminality, gang wars, drug wars, were actually the people we blamed. Most of the homicides were young, poor, working class, black and brown kids. And the dominant social message was, no one cared if you lived or died.
As far as I'm concerned, in the late 80s in New York City, the black community was under assault. The most endangered species in America, that was a popular phrase, was the young black man.
It was a nice night. We were just hanging out outside, playing basketball where I live at in Schaumburg.
It was a holiday coming up. We didn't have school. A couple of friends wanted to go hang out.
I told him, too much trouble in the corner. Go to the park. I sent her to the park that night. So I feel guilty too.
I was coming from a restaurant on the corner of 110th Street.
We walked over to 110th Street.
Almost in front of the entrance to Schomburg Plaza.
Coming from 110th in Madison, there was a group of people.
I see this mob turning the corner.
Good kids and bad kids. Kids is out to have some fun.
Some of them I didn't know by face. Some of them went to my school. Some of them lived in my neighborhood.
Yusuf came my way.
I see Corey. I said, hey, come and hang out. We're about to hang out in the park.
A close friend of mine's, he stayed back. We was all playing basketball, and he was like, don't go. Like, stay here.
Next thing I know, we was going into the park.
Walking, few of the guys horse playing with each other, jumping on each other's back, beat each other up, just horse playing.
We start going towards the main road. And people started throwing rocks at the cars.
A couple that was on a tandem bike, and some kids was harassing them or saying something to them.
Looked like they were trying to pull them off, and the bicyclists held their balance, and they just kept going.
A homeless person starts walking across the street, and the guys surround him.
He had some food. Some of the guys out of the group took his food, beat him up.
They were beating this guy up really badly, and at some point in time, someone poured out a beer bottle and then smashed him in the head with it.
You know, it's kind of unbelievable to see that and to see, like, this guy getting, you know, jumped on by all these teenagers.
I remember police coming. Everybody split up.
They shined the light.
They sure were,
kind
man.
of dispersed. Everybody ran.
That's when it was time for me to go home. I left the park when everybody scattered.
We was gonna leave, but somebody said, well, let's go find the rest of the guys that will break out. We'll go home. And that's what we did.
We crossed down onto the 96th Street Traverse and climb up the rocks to the other side.
We was by a reservoir. I remember a man running by, and some kids had thrown rocks at him. And he kept running. Another person came running by, and when he got in the middle, they kind of came out and they jumped on him. We was watching from a distance. I didn't take part in that.
And I'm like, wow, this guy just picked him up and threw him into the gate. Then he just starts punching him and beating him.
And then somebody yelled police.
Wildin', that's right.
Commotion. Some kids like running that way, or some kids going the other way. Trying to find our way outside, out of the park.
I think it was between like 9 o'clock and 10 o'clock. I was leaving the park on the time. I had a curfew.
I remember walking with this small group to the 1, 2, and the 3 train on Broadway. The only crime I committed that night was I hopped the turnstile.
On Central Park West, a car pulled up in front of me, and 2 officers jumped out, and one grabbed me, and when I turned back, the crowd scattered and everybody ran.
Police was chasing me, and I had nowhere else to go, so it was a wall. And you jump over the wall, you go back into the park.
They handcuffed us and put in the car, and then his partner ran and he jumped over the wall into the park, and he took off.
Somebody told me to freeze, I would shoot. My fear even went up more, so I just kept running. One of the cops, he tackled me. All my clothes was just all dirty and muddy. And he had a helmet, and he swung it across my face. And he handcuffed me, and I said, I basically said, like, what's going on? And he said, you know, didn't I tell you not to run? Like you little animal or something. So, I basically said, I didn't do nothing, you know. We sat in the police cars for a while. They rounded up a few people and we proceeded to the precinct.
They brought us in, they took shots, photos of us, and then they put us in a room.
14. Never got arrested, never had handcuffs on me. Scared to death. I could recall one cop looking at me. He says, "What's that in your face?" And I said, one of your fellow workers hit me. And he said, one of your fellow workers? Where at? Come point them out to me, you know, like I was lying. He asked me what's gonna go on next, and the guy's just saying, give you a ticket for family court, and you'll be right out of here in no time soon.
We were sitting there for a long time.
It took a while, but they began to call parents.
My mother received a call from the precinct, and they told her to come pick Kevin up from, it was the Central Park precinct, and that he had been picked up for, I believe it was unlawful assembly.
3 policemen knock on my door and say, "Oh, you didn't know your son was in the police station?" I said, "No." And they tell me, "Come on, let's go." And I had to get dressed. And then my mother was there. She got scared. And she said, "I'm going with you." So she went with me.
So I started seeing a lot of parents. We feel a little better, you know, thinking that we gonna be okay.
The jogger was discovered about 1:30 in the morning by passersby. She was in the underbrush in the northern reaches of the park, and she was taken to Metropolitan Hospital.
Her skull was fractured. She lost a good deal of her body fluids. She was virtually dead. The kids were about to be released when a detective who realized the gravity of the injuries of the victim called the precinct and said, "Hold on to those guys." And it was from that moment forward that everything plowed towards them.
Right. It's so, you have to give that message. And it's not enough to just give that message, right? Before the kids leave and say, hey, you know, we think the title is just don't talk to strangers, don't do this. But you really have to paint a picture of why this thing is so important. You know, call home. You can't be locked in a room. Demand to talk to your parents. Demand to get your representative. Even if you're 15, 14, whatever the ages are, you're scared in there. But you really, really have to get that burned into your kid's head. Like, how many times you hear growing up, you have the right to remain silent. But when you're really in that situation, you really don't understand what that means, right? You want to explain yourself. You think the cops are your friends under interrogation. All of that nonsense.
The next time I heard from my mother, she woke me up and she says, "I'm still here at the precinct." And I says, "Well, why are you still there?" And she said, "Well, they're saying they're waiting for paperwork."
I was wondering what I saw, and I told them if I could see my son, but I saw him next door in the room with all the kids, and they said, "No, you gotta wait till morning." So I told my mother, stay with him, and let me go to work. They probably gonna release him in the morning anyway. I don't see nothing wrong. And I went to work.
Initially, the case was going to be handled by the Central Park Precinct, but she was thought to be near death, and homicide cases are handled typically by these homicide squads. And Manhattan North was a prestigious bunch of detectives with a great deal of pride in their work and swagger in their step.
Two prosecutors, Linda Fairstein and Elizabeth Lederer. They were a part of the investigation, and they were operating not only as prosecutors, but investigators.
I was getting ready for work, and I heard the news. And instantly, your mind goes into the calculus. An unidentified white woman found raped in northern Central Park. Oh.
I think virtually every ethnic and racial group in New York has these moments where your heart just sort of stops and your stomach turns and you think to yourself, oh, please don't let it be us.
First we was all together. Then they started to put us in different rooms separately. Different cops coming back and forth, and one cop saying, well, we just heard that a woman was raped and beaten in the park.
Now he says, what happened to the lady? And I'm saying, what lady? And he says, what do you mean, what lady? The lady who got raped in the park.
I said, yeah, I was in the park. And I was, all around. But that I don't know about.
What do you mean you don't know? You just, and I said, no, we never came across no lady. So now we going back through the statement from the top again. What did you do? Who were you with? Who did you come with? And same answers again.
They're getting a little angry because I guess they're not getting a word out of anybody.
The detectives are trying to piece together a narrative of what happened, and they're trying to make it fit what they know happened. A woman ended up at the bottom of a ravine in the park, almost dead, and a bunch of other people got hassled or hurt in some way by these kids. So they're trying to make this story climb some sort of ladder of facts.
All hell is breaking loose in Central Park that night, and there are gangs of kids running around making mischief. It's not so hard to understand why these kids were brought in, why they were interrogated so aggressively, why police believed they had amongst them the culprit or culprits. Now they just have to get the proof of it.
Another detective came into the room, he called my grandmother, and he said, listen, can I talk to you outside for a minute? And when he took her outside, that's when it started. He looks at me, he's like, oh, this is the scumbag right here that did it.
I remember one guy specifically told me, you want to spend 25 to life on Rikers Island? You want to go to jail for rape? Because they don't like guys that rape women and things like that, And I'm saying, like, I'm telling the guy, I don't know what you're talking about.
Not other officer come, short guy, and he's like, oh, so this is the prick right here. And Arroyo says, yeah, this is the guy here. He doesn't want to tell us what happened. And now I'm sitting there like, no, what's going on? And now Arroyo starts to yell at me. And then this guy pulls up a chair next to me. He starts to yell right in my ear. So I have Arroyo here yelling at me, blowing smoke in my face with the cigarette, and then I have this guy on my side, and he's yelling at me. And they're like, you fucking did it. You fucking stuck your dick in her, right? Didn't you? And I'm like, what are you talking about? I didn't stick nothing in nobody. And I start to cry a little bit. And then Hardigan jumps in, and I was grateful. At that point, I was grateful because Hardigan stopped him from trying to hurt me.
Then the other guy come back in screaming, yelling, violating my personal space, so close to spitting on me. And then my mother, she came to the door, and she said, I need to see my son. I need to see my son. I looked out, and I seen one detective, take her by the shoulder, put her back to her chair. And while he's talking to them, they closed the door, and they questioned me. They knew that my mother was a weak person, was disabled, and they used that. They used that.
The officers that actually met me outside, they were like, oh, your mom.
Could you hear me?
Oh, damn it. Another rookie mistake. I'm, I'm trying to not disturb anything, so I keep taking the mic off, so I don't
Okay,
make
yeah,
any
for
noise in the
sure.
background. Anyway, before I just start with you, what's up, Steph? I was just
Hey,
saying, I'm so lucky. We're lucky as viewers here that they were still around after this to be able to put the story in their own words and really communicate
yes,
their feelings and everything of what they were experiencing at the time.
yes, absolutely. Um, and you know, I was fortunate enough to spend not I would say a lot of time with Yusuf, but a significant amount of time. And he actually does not really care for the term Central Park Five. He wants to
Right,
be called the Exonerated Five.
right.
Um, and their story is just so incredible that they were able to come out the other side after all of this. After all of this, and how they were just so. I don't even, the amount of violence that was done upon them is just
Yeah,
so incredibly wicked, just wicked.
yeah.
Um, but I wanted to say that that guy, the detective, or the whoever that was, I don't know if he was a detective or what his role was. The dude that said it's not hard to believe that they thought that these dudes did it, or they thought that maybe somebody in that group had done this.
Right, right.
At this point, from what I understand from the case, the document, what you're showing, and also things that I know about the case, the woman was so in such bad shape. Like they're saying here, like she was almost dead, right?
Right,
And they had put her in the hospital. She had not given a statement.
right.
She had not given a statement. They did not know if it was one, 2, 3, 4, and maybe I don't even know if she even remembered, even after she came out.
They
Um,
do touch on that a little later on too, and I don't want to give that part away as
okay.
to where her
But
mind was.
yeah, but it's like it's not hard to believe. How is it not hard to believe, my guy? Like, how is it
Right,
hard not to believe? Like, what do you mean? Like, this is just a presumption that they made. You could tell this got started from the jump about the presumptions that they had about the young men in the park. That was
absolutely.
it. That was it, because at that point they had no way to know if she even remembered shit. So it's not hard to believe. That pissed me off that it's not hard to believe. Yes, it fucking is, my guy.
Right. Right. I think this also reminds me, and this is a thing I know few people experience it. I think as young black men, we've experienced this in the past, but I don't know if you remember the movie The Hurricane with Denzel
Yes,
Washington.
yeah. I
Hurricane
got a
Park.
story of the hurricane too. That I never met that guy,
I,
but
I
yeah,
I met him before,
yeah,
and I remember at the beginning when the police approached the car after they were basically stalking out the hurricane, right? And so the officer approaches the window, says, we're looking for somebody, and Hurricane Denzel's character would say, "So any two will do," you
mm-hmm,
know. And this is a fear that we've always had growing up, especially as young black men, that any two will do, anyone will do. It doesn't matter who the individual is, as long as they have somebody to fill that slot. You're not going to be seen as an individual. They're not going to take time to distinguish your character away from a hardened criminal, as long as they're able to catch one to appease the audience or the crowd, as that. So
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I just can't. I can't even believe those words came out of his mouth, especially knowing the whole story and looking in hindsight. Yeah, it's not hard to believe, dude. I mean, dude, like I just can't even. The gall, the gall, the
Mhm.
nerve. And I just that's all I wanted to say. That's why I hit the link.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
Yeah, and jump back on if you want. I just want comments and stuff so we could get through this because it's pretty
cool.
lengthy. So,
Okay.
feel
Yeah,
free to do that. Good to see you, and thanks
good
for
to
the
see you
comment.
too. Thanks for playing this. It's
All right.
it's very appreciated.
Appreciate it. Hopefully they keep letting us play it. So here we go. All right.
Mother's, she's not well, and since you're, of age, you can stay and replace your mother, and we'll send her on home in a squad car, and we'll make sure she's okay. And they said she was cooperating with this process, so we're sure that you're going to cooperate as well, so that they constantly kept saying, so that your brother could go home, so that your brother could go home, so that, and that's all I wanted. I just wanted to get him back home.
There's a loud knock at the door. It was 3 or 4 detectives. I thought they was there because of the assaults on the people in Central Park. My father, he let them come in. These men, they look like giants, you know, compared to my father. They asked me to put some sneakers on. He told my father they was gonna take me out to the precinct. My father called my mother, and my mother met us at the precinct. They was asking me questions about a female jogger in Central Park. And I was like, there's only one woman. She was with a man on a bike, but they rode off. And he's like, you sure? I was like, yeah. What about the lady that got raped? I'm like, what lady that got raped? And they just kept asking me about this lady that got raped. And I kept telling them, there's only one lady. Then they asked my mother to leave the room. I'm looking at my father. He's like, are you telling the truth? I was like, yeah, Dad, I'm telling the truth. I swear I'm telling the truth. I always told my father the truth. I know nothing about no jogger. I know some people got beaten up, but I had nothing to do with that. Then they asked me to tell my story again. This time, yelling at me, all up in my face, pointing at me, poking me in my chest. It just kept going on and on and on. We stopped a few times, 'cause I was crying. I had no protection. My father didn't do anything. I was scared.
Hours have passed.
Time kept going by.
They kept asking questions.
No food, no drink.
I didn't eat. I didn't get no sleep.
And I didn't know when it was gonna end.
Confrontation followed by denial, followed by you're a liar, I want to hear the truth, can go on for hours.
Kids
And
remember.
the goal there is to
Kids.
break the suspect down into a state of despair, into a state of helplessness, so that the suspect gets worn down and is looking for a way out.
They pulled my father aside. Then my father came back in the room, was like, he just changed. He just changed, like, listen, he's like, tell these people what they want to hear so you can go home. If he just would have stood his ground, I would have told the truth. I would have stuck to the truth.
Hardigan sat down and he said, look, Ray, I know you didn't do anything wrong, but the other guys right now, they're in other precincts and they're saying that you did it.
And they telling me, well, you're not saying nothing, but these guys put your name in it.
And I'm like, I didn't do anything. And he's like, well, this is why I'm here to help you, because I know you didn't do anything. You're a good kid. You know, this isn't you. He pulls out this picture of Kevin Richardson, and he goes, you know this kid? And I'm like, no, I don't know him. And he goes, you see the scratch under his eye? That came from the woman. We know he did it. He's going down.
At this
Remember,
point,
they
I'm
did
like,
that scratch.
You know, like I don't know these guys that's there, so I'm just gonna make up something and include these guys' names.
Okay. If you know, if you're gonna do it to me, then I'm gonna do it to you.
They was coaching me, and I was writing it down.
He just fed it to me. Well, what did he do? What did Antron McCray do? He gave me the names. I put them in. I couldn't tell you who they were, who they looked like. If he would have gave me 100 names, I would have put 100 people at the crime scene.
And I was like, how can they lie? So I was like, I'm gonna get them back.
At that point, I told myself, I just want to go home.
I thought I had the upper hand because here I had a detective who was saying, I'm gonna make sure you go home.
I was thinking that I was never gonna go home. I gave these people what they want to hear. So I lied.
I say, well, you know, this is where it happened, at the reservoir. You know, I'm placing the scene of the crime at the reservoir. And he doesn't really say, but he gives me this look like, what are you talking about?
He asked me what she was wearing. I didn't know, 'cause I wasn't there. So I remember one of the men joggers that got assaulted. He had blue shorts and a white shirt. That's what I said she had on.
And then he said, it gotta be more believable. You know, Ray, people don't fully believe it if you just saw it. He said, where were you? And I said, I saw it from a distance. I was watching. He said, no, you gotta be in it. Like, you have to be there.
As the time just, went on, my father wasn't doing nothing. So I was just like, whatever, yeah, I had something to do with it. Just to get out of there.
Then we saw this lady jogger. She had on gray shorts with black biking pants and a white tank top.
I observed the male, Black Kevin, with scratch on face, was struggling with a female.
The tall, thin black guy hit her in the ribs with a pipe.
I moved back and everybody started feeling on her.
Antron came and started ripping her clothes off.
The Puerto Rican kid with the black hoodie jumped on her.
I tried to grab her. I got scratched on my face.
Antron pulled her pants off and she was screaming.
Antron had sex with her.
Then Kevin got on.
That's when she was yelling, stop and help. I was the one that didn't rape her.
Kevin pulled down his pants and had sex with her. When she was on the floor, I grabbed her tits. A 14-year-old boy doesn't talk like this. You know?
You could see even as men, just reading that over decades after, how it pains them to read that. The emotion, I'm sure some of that or a lot of that is guilt of what they had to put against, their other friends at the time or acquaintances, because they said a couple of them aren't even really friends like that. What about Antron's father, who didn't step up? We'd like to think that, oh, I couldn't do that, It's even, I don't know about today, but even after the movie came out and everything, it was said that Antron still wasn't cool with his father like that. I believe he may have passed away, but he, held a lot of hatred even after the fact, after all this came out too, man. So there's so many things with this.
At that time, being naive, I figured I'm not imitating myself.
I was crying at that time. He said, don't worry, you did good. Everything's going to be okay.
When I first went there, they said I was going to be a witness. And then everything just flipped, They had me raping a woman, beating her. And they read the statement to my mother. And she looked at me. I was like, Ma, I didn't do it. She's like, okay, I don't know you didn't do it.
I walked in the room and I could see that he was terrified. I could see him shivering. I said, Kevin, I can't believe you saw this woman get raped. And he looked at me. He said, Angie, I didn't see it. And I said, Kevin, why did you say that then? He said, because he told me to say it so I could go home. But it was like an orchestra, like they orchestrated this whole thing, and I felt so dumb for not realizing it until it was too late.
When I came back, they disappeared my son. He wasn't there no more. I said, where's my son? He said they took him to another police station.
My father did make a return, but when he came, it was too late.
And waited like 4 or 5 hours. And then he came in, handcuffed, and a lot of policemen with them.
My dad's sitting there, so I go through the same story, but now I add the woman in it. Now my dad, this is the first time he hears this. So he looks at me and he goes, what? That happened? And now I get quiet because now here's my dad. I can't lie to him. And I'm like, I want to say, Dad, don't say nothing. It's taken care of.
In those days, there were probably 6 murders a day. In the newsrooms, people didn't always pay attention to whatever grisly event of the day had happened. This one was different.
Last night, a woman jogger was found unconscious and partially clothed in Central Park about 200 feet north of the 102nd Street Cross Drive. What we believe happened is the following. The victim was jogging across the 102nd Street Cross Drive when she was attacked by a dozen young males. She was dragged down the bushes near what is called the Lock, where she was beaten and sexually assaulted. 5 youths were arrested at 96th Street and the West Bridle Path. We believe these youths and others were responsible for 2 or 3 other incidents that occurred in the park last night, assaults on joggers and pedestrians, and we are currently looking for others we believe to be involved.
When I came home, I remember saying to myself, man, there's a whole bunch of unmarked police cars out here. I wonder what happened. I bumps into Corey at some point, and Corey says he heard that they were looking for us.
So him and I went upstairs. We had the detectives at his door.
And they said, oh, this is one of the guys we were looking for. Check my name off. And they asked Corey who he was.
Looked at the list. So, no, your name ain't on here. So they said, you could come downtown with your buddy. You'll be right back.
We went to the precinct.
Almost got me that time. I believe that guy, Corey, I think he's like the smallest out of the group. And I also think he did the most amount of time. He actually went to Rikers. So if you know about Rikers, I think he spent most of his time over there. And he just has a more unique position in this whole story. It was also mentioned before that, you know, he had a little learning disability as well. And you could probably tell when he talks. So he went through a lot of it alone in Rikers, in an adult jail at that. Not even an adult, but Rikers, right? Here we go.
And I came home 7 years later. He came home 13 years later.
Let me put that back for you since I interrupted.
We had the detectives at his door.
And they said, oh, this is one of the guys we were looking for. Check my name off. And they asked Corey who he was.
Looked at the list. So, no, your name ain't on here. So they said, you could come downtown with your buddy. You'll be right back.
We went to the precinct. And I came home 7 years later. He came home 13 years later.
They said, something happened out in the park. You was out in the park that night, right? I said, I was in the park, but I don't know what you're talking about.
Kevin is saying this happened.
Said he came back 7 years later. Corey came back 13 years later. It's your childhood, man. You're going in 14, 15. Shit.
You know, Antron is saying this happened. And they were stopping me during my retelling of the events and saying, is this where you got the woman? Is that where? The tone was very, very scary. I felt like these guys are really angry, and you know what? They might take us to the back of the precinct and kill us. A lot of time had gone by. I don't even know what time it was.
And Detective Hardigan said, Corey, you look like you're real tired, man. Very tired, you're exhausted, and you want to go home. But you're not gonna go home until you you say a story.
They had made up a story saying something like, well, we have your prints on her pants. I'm thinking, how did they take my prints and put it on her pants?
You hear the naivete of that statement, right? The police are saying, we found your prints, your fingerprints on her pants. His young mind is like, how did they get my fingerprints off of me to put on her pants? What an amazing, sad detail to put on that.
Detective Nugent, a young officer with a whole lot of energy, came in, put his face to my face, put his hand in my face, grabbed my face, shook my face. I want a story from you. I just gave written statement just to satisfy them, just to get them out my face with it and trying to be on my way out their building. And afterwards, he had me sign on it. So I signed on it.
These boys were in custody and under varying degrees of interrogation for a range of 14 to 30 hours. And when you are stressed, when you are tired, when you are a juvenile and not fully mature and developed, you're thinking, right now, I just want this to stop.
My name is Elizabeth Lederer. I'm an assistant district attorney in New York County. I'd like to ask you some questions about a series of things that happened in Central Park on the night of April 19th of 1989. Before I do that, I'd like to advise you of your rights with respect to statements you may make now, okay? You have the right to remain silent and to refuse to answer any questions. Do you understand?
Yes, I do.
Anything that you say can be used against you in court. Do you understand?
Yes, I do.
You have the right to consult a lawyer now before any questioning and have a lawyer present during any questioning. Do you understand? Could you please answer out loud?
Yes.
If you have no lawyer or cannot afford a lawyer will be provided for you now, free of charge, before any questioning. Do you understand?
Thank you. Yes.
Now that I've advised you of your rights, are you willing to tell me the truth about what happened in Central Park on the night of April 19th of 1989?
Yes.
Okay. Present in this room is Detective Nugent, who you have already met, I believe. Have you met
Detective Nugent told me to go in here. You're gonna give this story, what you had said to me and the rest of my coworkers. You're gonna go in and give this story. I'm gonna be in a room, and I want to make sure you do it.
They should go to jail for this.
McCabe and Detective Hildebrand, I think you've already met them. Also present are, I believe, your parents. Could you each please state your full name?
My name is Linda McCray.
Bob McCray.
And, ma'am, what is your relation?
I'm his mother.
And, okay. I want to warn you of your rights with respect to anything you say in this case.
Why would a parent not say at that moment, we want to consult with an attorney? The reason is because of the setting and because of the way they're being treated by the police and because of being overwhelmed by the situation, it doesn't even register in their minds.
I just want to state it is now 20 minutes to 5 in the morning on the morning of April 21st of 1989. There is another gentleman here in the room. Who is that man? And, sir, could you please just state your name and address?
Paul L. Richardson. My father, he was a quiet, stern man, so I felt ashamed that I was even there doing that. And I shouldn't feel that way because I was innocent.
Also present in the room right now are Detective Arroyo and Detective Sheehan.
I was under the impression that I was going to be a witness, help out, or just give them a story, and that was it.
Sir, could you please give your name?
I didn't think about consequences. I didn't think about anything. The only thing that I thought about was he was going to make sure I go home. That was it.
I'm going to ask you a few questions about what
Here I am doing a videotape, and I'm already deep in this. So I'm thinking now I got to sell it to make sure that people know that I wasn't involved.
Were you trying to touch her?
not really.
Didn't you tell the police earlier today that you had tried to grab her, and that's when you got scratched?
No, not like feeling her up.
Okay, not like that.
Stop it.
But you tried, you
Grab her arm or something.
you tried to grab her arm?
Trying to stop it.
Did you see in front of intercourse?
Yeah,
Was he laying on top of her, or was he kneeling, or was he?
laying on top of her.
Okay. How long was he on top of her?
For a short while, then Raymond went.
And as we headed to the west side, that's where I seen Kevin.
That's where you saw Kevin? Was anybody with Kevin?
Yeah.
Who was with Kevin?
Some lady.
A lady. How was she dressed?
I can't tell, it was too dark.
What was he doing with her?
Struggling with her.
What were the others doing while Kevin was struggling with her with the wrists?
Antoine was going for her clothes, and Lopez was pulling her arms.
What was Kevin doing while Steve Lopez was holding her
Sounds
hand?
very rehearsed. Very rehearsed.
Where were you standing?
I was on the side of Kevin.
Were you watching?
No, I was grabbing lady titties.
Who else had sex with her besides Kevin Richardson?
I didn't see anybody else who had sex with just him.
Did somebody have sex with her?
Yeah,
Did a lot of people have sex with her?
yeah.
Well, first it was the black guy, then it was the Puerto Rican guy with the black hood, then you got on top of her. What's in that picture?
It's her.
Is that the woman that you saw?
Yes.
Is that sort of the way she looked when you saw
How
her?
could they even tell?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you see anybody hit her with anything but their hands? And I'm telling you, Corey, I don't want you to think that you have to say that, but I want to know what you saw that explains how she got so badly hurt.
I did see Kevin pick up a hand rock, a small hand rock, and hit across the face with it.
How big was the rock?
It's a hand. Like it's basically was a big, a good shape rock. It was back.
Are you just saying that because I am asking you?
No.
Why didn't you say it before?
Ah, damn, the duress they're putting him. You can't see that. He's damn.
Why didn't you say it before?
I remember me taking a quick glance in the dark. I remember him picking up a rock from out the dirt.
Why did you tell him something that wasn't true, that you hadn't seen?
I was only guess just to save my own life. Get out of there as quickly as as possible, because I've been there too long as it was. And you know, being a kid, I never experienced that in my life.
How old were you?
16, and I felt like I was about 12. Yes, ma'am.
Did you tell us the truth voluntarily?
Yes, ma'am.
Because you wanted to?
Yes, ma'am.
Did anyone force you?
No, ma'am.
Did anyone threaten you?
No.
Thank you very much. It is now 20 minutes to 4, and the interview is concluded.
This is to anybody that's like, if you weren't guilty, why would you confess? This, they got you, but they have their methods. Starve you out, no drink, no food. Very long hours questioning you over and over. Grown ass men break under these conditions. They're teenagers, young boys. Is how you confess when you didn't do something.
They put us in the cell with the rest of the guys. Now, it's all these guys in here I don't even know. You know, who are you? You know, and everybody's asking each other, you know, well, what did you say? What did you say? And everybody's basically saying, well, I told him I was with my boy and we left. I didn't see nothing. Nobody's saying what they actually said. Everybody had that sense of don't let it out the bag, because if I let it out, then I'm not gonna go home.
In New York City this morning, a jogger is fighting for her life after a brutal attack in Central Park.
Viciously battered and unconscious, wearing only a jogging bra, her hands tied over her mouth.
Suspects are 14 and 15-year-olds who blazed a nighttime trail of terror.
Assaulting an elderly man, attacking a male runner, hitting another person with a lead pipe. At one time, the group was running in a pack of more than 25 youths.
The victim is now in critical condition at Metropolitan Hospital.
2 skull fractures, a significant loss of blood, and advanced hypothermia.
If she lives, it's likely she'll suffer from brain damage.
8 suspects were arraigned this weekend, aged 14 to 17.
Some of the young men told police they were just out wilding.
Wilding is a word you won't find in Webster's.
Wilding. New York City police say that's new teenage slang for rampaging and wolf packs, attacking people just for the fun of it.
The district attorney's office says that the teenagers have confessed. The spokesman said some of those confessions are on videotape.
A woman jogging in Central Park. Central Park was holy. If it had happened any place else other than Central Park, it would have been terrible. But it would not have been as terrible. It was, for everybody, not just me, the crime of the century.
During this whole process, we were inside the precinct. Had no clue what was going on outside.
Can you stop and talk to us for a couple of seconds and tell us what's going to happen now?
They said, oh, yeah, the news got a little bit of hold of his story, so there might be some reporters outside. You know, just don't pay him any attention, just keep walking.
Yeah,
Today
might
we are
be.
announcing the arrests of 4 males, all between 14 and 15 years of age, in connection with the April 19th attempted murder, rape, and assault of a female in Central Park.
They got him. That was the feelings. Thank God for Ben Ward and the NYPD. They got him.
Set against the backdrop of New York City and a crime that just about has everybody flipping out, you can only imagine the pressure that NYPD was under to have this crime solved, and solved quickly.
Jack Maple, one of the architects of the 1990s New York City police revolution, once told me that he remembered seeing detectives involved in the Central Park jogger case in Elaine's within a day or so of the crime, celebrating the arrests. There was a sense that this had been a home run from a law enforcement standpoint.
When they changed us up to go to another precinct, pictures, snapping.
Me and Yusuf did the walk together, and we just kept our head down. When we saw the lights, we still didn't understand.
I'm walking, and I'm scared, but I have my head up high, and all I think to myself, okay, the truth is gonna come out.
After they got out of the interrogation room, they backed off it. Each one of them denied having done it. Consistently, again and again and again. They said, no, we didn't do it.
For the first time since the April 19th rampage through Central Park, Manhattan DA Robert Morgenthau spoke out publicly on the attacks to officially announce indictments involving 6 of the 8 suspects charged with the most serious crimes.
All of that.
Charged in this attack.
All of that. It's not a coincidence. These are all the tactics, right? The perp walk, the whole everything, parading them around, getting them known, getting the public in a frenzy.
With attempted murder, rape in the first degree, sodomy in the first degree, sexual abuse in the first degree, 2 counts of assault in the first degree, and riot in the first degree.
Just in case you can't see that. None of the other teenagers who had been interrogated had implicated themselves in the rape of the jogger. Some of them would plead guilty to the other crimes that had taken place in the park that night and would serve short prison sentences. Should say the other victim.
There's no way that I, as a woman, could not feel horrible for her and feel scared for myself and every other woman walking the street. And I was on the edge of my seat hoping that she would get better, but there was no indication that she would recover consciousness.
For me, the one piece of information that just got me was her friends coming in to identify her and her being just beaten beyond recognition. And the only way that her friends could identify her was by a ring that she wore.
Obviously a tragedy too. That can't be lost in this case, but that anger can't be turned to innocent people
The
to
28-year-old
appease that.
victim lies in a coma. A teacher called her Golden Girl, an investment banker with a blue-chip background whose savage beating and gang rape has provoked outrage in a city famous for indifference. Suspects in the crime were arraigned this weekend, aged 14 to 17.
Rape in the first degree, sodomy in the first degree, sexual abuse in the first degree.
We was at arraignment, and I remember them reading charges off. Robbery in the first, attempted murder in the first, rape in the first. And the lawyer was like, don't say anything, just keep your head down.
That he had her by the legs and that he raped her after defendant Santana did.
But it wasn't until you got into that jail and you felt the impact.
Spofford juvenile detention. They had kids that committed serious crime.
That's also where famous Mike Tyson spent time, Spofford as well.
Murder, rape.
This counselor came down. He sat there with us and he said, you know how serious y'all case is? And we was like, what are you talking about? And he said, y'all all over the paper, y'all on every news station, everybody's talking about y'all. He said, it's so serious, the whole jail want to get you.
Because he was 16. He sent Corey to Rikers Island.
Rikers Island would make Spofford look like a country club. Especially when you're in there for a rape charge.
To be a child, to be 16 years old and to be in an adult facility, I can't imagine that.
Rikers Island? At the age of 16, being
My heart
forced
breaks.
to grow up very fast.
Man.
In the first few days after the incident, the narrative that came out was that these young men were guilty. And it was almost unquestioned.
When parents or grandmothers of some of these
Right, Stephanie, and I hear that too, and like I was saying earlier, we know this. We could run that, the Miranda rights, I don't know, from the time or whatever, just from watching the movies. But at what age, at what time does that really get internalized? You know what I'm saying? Like, even adults that they catch don't get the concept of just shut the fuck up. You don't have to say anything. And of course, with the manipulation of these kids as well, believing that the law is there to help them, they're under that myth also, terrible, man, terrible.
Alleged perpetrators. We always have to say alleged because that's the requirement. When those grandmothers say, but he's a good boy, he never did anything. Don't you believe it?
There was so much hate.
Don't you believe it?
We couldn't watch TV.
There's something wrong with the parenting and the family.
Now I want to put that back.
Home life of our city. It's an outrage. It's
Came out was
These
that
are
these young men were
people supposed to
and it was almost
be unbiased. And, you know, Ed Koch, the mayor at the time, you know, you're not convicted by the public here already. How he's already feeding into this mantra, the narrative of these boys and playing on everybody's fear without even knowing the truth. This is the language, right?
Or grandmothers of some of these alleged perpetrators. We always have to say alleged because that's the requirement. When those grandmothers say, but he's a good boy, he never did anything. Don't you believe it?
There was so much hate.
Don't you believe it?
We couldn't watch TV.
There's something wrong with the parenting and the families and the home life of our city. It's an outrage. It's
Didn't Anthony, the father of the twin boy, say that about the black teen who his son attacked over 3 decades ago? Same language.
the violence in this city, the quality of life in this city is getting worse and worse.
This is the ultimate shriek of alarm. This is the ultimate siren that says none of us is safe.
The story has enraged many New Yorkers, startled others, and started a renewed talk of an under-policed city with crime out of control.
Mayor Koch said, this will be a test of the system.
People want to see how the criminal justice system works, or if it works.
The brutal attack on the young investment banker is fueling a new battle for the death penalty, even though, as the proposed law now stands, it would only apply to those 18 or older.
I'm for the death penalty. If someone were to hurt my family or a loved one as they did this woman, I would probably want them dead.
You better believe that I hate the people that took this girl and raped her brutally. You better believe it. Trump put his money where his mouth is by taking out this full-page ad in Ford.
I didn't mean to interrupt, but we just need to really see this again. We really need to lock in on what this person is saying.
For the death penalty, even though, as the proposed law now stands, it would only apply to those 18 or older.
I'm for the death penalty. If someone were to hurt my family or
Pay attention.
a loved one as they did this woman,
Lock into this.
I would probably want them dead.
You better believe that I hate the people that took this girl and raped her brutally. You better believe it. Trump put his money where his mouth is by taking out this full-page ad in 4 New York City newspapers. Bring back the death penalty.
Trump's ads underscore a fierce debate going on right now in New York. According to a recent Gallup poll, a full 76% of all New York City residents favor executing some convicted criminals.
They were children. They were children.
If she had been found in Harlem.
Fierce debate going on right now in New York.
I'm just
According
putting
to
it
a
back
recent
here.
And raped her brutally.
I'm just putting it back here because I want us to definitely remember the person that we have in the White House. Nonsense. And the worst part about this, everything that we see, everything that we're going to see thereafter, knowing what we know today, this bullhead of an idiot won't offer an apology. A simple apology. How crazy is that? I was wrong. The back, and you'd look like a better person for it. You'd look like a human being. I think a great way to explain it is to do not explain anything and try to make the police understand. You say, oh, you're responding to that one. Yes, as well. But this man is in the, and he would been put in the spotlight for this. You would have been so much more of a human being instead of a soulless idiot if you could just apologize to those boys. You wanted to kill innocent people. Idiot.
You better believe it.
Trump put his money where his mouth is by taking out this full-page ad in 4 New York City newspapers. Bring back the death penalty.
Trump's ads underscore a fierce debate going on right now in New York. According to a recent Gallup poll, a full 76% of all New York City residents favor executing some convicted criminals.
They were children. They were children. Bringing up the death penalty in the context of a case in which you were discussing children was outrageous to me.
I think that if she had been a young woman who had been found in an alley in Bedford-Stuyvesant, if she had been found in Harlem, if she had been found in any of the darker enclaves in this city or in this state, Donald Trump wouldn't have spoken. He wouldn't have even whispered a word.
Interracial rapes are covered differently. And there was another major rape in the city at the time. And this is the woman who was raped in Brooklyn and thrown off a rooftop.
Pay attention.
That got little to no coverage because the assailants and the victim were in the same racial group.
If it's a white woman and the accusation is that she's been done in by blacks, that by itself takes you back to Emmett Till, who did nothing but whistle at a woman and ended up in a shallow Mississippi grave.
If this had happened in 1901, they would have been lynched, perhaps castrated, and their bodies burned. And that would have been the end of it.
But this was New York City, 1989. It was not Jim Crow South, and yet the same words are being used with the same damaging results.
They seized on the fears of the people. Wilding, the bestial characterization of the black man, these young hoodlums, these thugs.
Once we were on the path to identifying these young men as the culprits, it's hard to get off that path. And race-powered politics make it extremely difficult. It requires extraordinary courage.
A lot of people in the black community went along with the confessions. Many of us were frightened by our own children. Many of us had been pushed around, raped, burglarized, pocketbooks snatched, harassed on the subway, often by young black men.
There I go again. I am. What's up? I'm going to pause it for a second in case you want to interject and make a statement and anything. How you doing?
Hey, last call. I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing okay. You know, playing this one. It is a tough one that I don't know. Are you familiar with this case from before?
Oh, yes, very. And I've seen this movie. I've seen this documentary before. And right now it's kind of hard for me to watch. I've been watching parts of it and then kind of turning away and coming back and turning away.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But the part I saw just now before I tapped in was the headlines. I saw the headlines and it just brought back so many memories.
Right.
I was just a kid back then, but it was so frightening to me for the wrong reasons. I thought of these boys as monsters. Like I believed that propaganda. I did not know until years later to question it.
Yeah.
And that propaganda, oh my goodness, like I said, it was very, very strong. Like right now, I have this memory of Wilding in those big black letters. It's just like burned in my mind.
Absolutely. Were you in the New York area at that time?
No, I wasn't in the New York area.
Okay.
But it was just such an all-consuming story for years. For years.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, even so, I was saying earlier, so used to visit New York a lot, that part of New York. Well, actually in Brooklyn. And you know, the freedom you had when you were a kid back then, where you could go away as long as you were back when it was dark, you know, that sort of deal. But you could
Yeah.
virtually be gone. I don't think kids even understand that sort of freedom today. But that part, I remember my uncle saying, just don't go around, you know, the park. Don't go.
Right.
It was the first time he was very adamant in telling us and giving us boundaries, you know,
Mm.
of where not to go and where to be seen and all that sort of stuff. And
Mhm.
anybody who thinks like you know, propaganda or these headlines and things don't work to usher in this fear, you know, to create this narrative is crazy, because it
Mhm.
certainly works. This is nothing but an earlier version of like fake news.
Definitely the irony.
You're right.
Yeah.
Right? Exactly, and perpetrated by that idiot there, you
Yes.
know?
I
And
remember that as well. I was a preteen or a teen when that happened, a teenager.
Mhm.
And I would go around all the time. I would walk around my neighborhood, go to neighboring towns, just get lost and then come back home when it was dark. And I lived in the hood.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everybody did that. We walked to the corner store, you know, in some kind of dicey areas, whatever. But
Yeah, man.
I remember around that time, like I was afraid of that happening to me, of being attacked by, you know, these quote unquote wilding teenagers.
Yeah.
And I didn't even think of them as teenagers or kids like me, which
Yeah.
is awful.
Isn't
But
that
I
crazy?
also had like a fear of the police too.
Right.
Just the whole, all of that, the propaganda, the adults arguing about this in the news.
The
There
media
was just a lot of fear around that whole thing.
right, the media was successful in turning you against them. No longer brothers or sisters.
Yeah.
Animals now. They're your enemies. And they
Yeah.
didn't even do anything.
Right. Right.
That is scary, to come out and be able to control that narrative of not only your own people, the outside people as well. And that's a continuation of what they already think. So this is a reaffirming, oh yeah, this is, you know, this is what they do. You know, like Ed
Mhm.
Koch was already talking about, don't believe them when they say, but you were a good boy and this and that, being condescending at that.
Mhm. Mhm.
Put these boys through hell
It's awful.
to be too lazy to do the work, to do the actual work that they were supposed to do.
I was so glad to see this documentary, but I remember sitting in the theater watching it when it first came out. Yeah, I was just so angry, like my heart was in my throat the whole time.
Absolutely. And I don't know, you know, from the beginning. So, you know, Ken Burns, and, you know, we spoke about him a little bit earlier. You know, he does all those great documentaries for PBS and the Civil War,
Mhm.
real thorough award winning. But it was his daughter, Sarah Burns, who actually brought this case to his attention, because she was working the case as an intern, I believe. Could be Columbia. I might be misquoting, you know, wherever she was working at the time. But she would bring the pages, you know, to Ken Burns, her father, and be like, we got to write a book or something because this case is unbelievable. And then they ended up
Mhm.
making this documentary about it too. So yeah, yeah, you know, of course, cases like this have happened. Innocent people have gone, you know, to prison for many years and maybe not even
Mhm.
have gotten out. But this is good exposure, you know, of the real inside dealings of this as well, and the mentality that goes along to perpetrate stuff like this. And it's just, it really is
Absolutely.
crazy.
Absolutely. But I'll let you get back to showing this. I just wanted to
Definitely.
chime in about the propaganda. Just my
Definitely.
memory of that.
Yes, yes. Appreciate it. Thank you for watching, and we'll continue here.
All right.
All right. Take care. Bye.
People just said, oh, how terrible. How terrible. And everyone turned against him except a few.
The good news is she continues to improve neurologically from her attack. For the first time, she called her father Dad. She did simple arithmetic. Her brain is working. Still abnormally, she thought the year was 1952, but her brain is working.
She's getting better, and so far, she looks good.
The medical case of the 28-year-old jogger continues to improve. She's undergoing physical and psychological therapy at a Connecticut hospital.
The young woman attacked has apparently made a remarkable recovery, although she reportedly cannot recall any details about the attack.
When I was bailed out, I thought the case was over. I thought the truth came out. I didn't know nothing about bail until I got home. My mother explained it. No, it's bail. We pay for you to get out, and we still got to go on with this. I wasn't able to go to school, so I got a tutor. I didn't go outside a lot. I stayed in the house, played video games, and just studied.
The police controlled the story from the beginning. They created the story and the theory, and all the pieces fell into place.
The authorities release a chronology to the press of what this wilding was all about.
Together at about 8:50 p.m.
The newspapers love chronologies. We call them TikToks. We like to say, here's how this night of terror unfolded in the park.
At 8:55, they attacked an older male.
The timeline says the kids did these attacks at this place with the homeless guy, at this place with the taxi driver, over there with the bicycle rider, and then with people running around the reservoir. They did various acts of malice or mischief with these folks. Now, those people reported these things either simultaneously or right after to the police. So there is a clear-cut timeline. And what they do is they append to the end of this sequence of crimes the attack on the jogger. Then something happens. Her movements that night start to become defined. And all of a sudden, we find out when she left her house, what route she normally took around the park, and with not necessarily absolute certainty, but with a good degree of certainty, you can figure out that Tricia Miley should have been in the park around the place where she was attacked at around 20 after 9. We know for certain that at that time, those kids were beating up, hassling other people on the reservoir, south of that spot in the park. They weren't at that part of the park at the time she would have been there.
Due diligence.
And if you watch the videotaped confessions, it turns out they actually don't know where the crime took place. They don't know when it took place, and they don't know how it took place. They just know that it happened.
The problem is, once you form a strong belief that somebody is guilty of a crime, the contradictory details are just that. They're details, but they don't fundamentally change our belief in their guilt. But when the DNA results come back, and none of their DNA is present, that should have stopped the investigation in its tracks, and they should have at least paused and moved in another direction.
Harlan Levy was a DNA prosecutor at the time, and he recalls how Elizabeth Lederer said, "Please come to my office," and he could sense urgency in her voice.
So I just heard it. I'm just wondering if you guys heard it. About none of the DNA. Remember, this is 89. This isn't DNA as we know it today. They could fish it out of wherever. This is, they're saying nothing matched. So let me just go back over here. I was wondering if we could finish the whole thing. We might be able to. We might have to save a little bit for next week, unfortunately. But let me go back here.
But when the DNA results come back, and none of their DNA is present, That should have stopped the investigation in its tracks, and they should have at least paused and moved in another direction.
Absolutely.
Harlan Levy was a DNA prosecutor at the time, and he recalls how Elizabeth Lederer said, "Please come to my office," and he could sense urgency in her voice. And she said, "Look, I feel like I've been kicked in the stomach. There's no DNA match whatsoever to any of these boys."
It is improbable, given the nature of this crime and the scene, that these boys would not have left a single trace of themselves on the scene, or the scene a single trace on them. The improbability of that is striking. But the decision was, we can still prosecute this case, and the argument we will make to the jury is, just because we didn't get all of them doesn't mean we didn't get some of them. They now created a scenario by which there is a sixth perpetrator who mysteriously doesn't appear in any of the confessions. Correct. That sixth perpetrator absence in their confessions makes the confessions
The trail in the grass is the beginning of this attack. And in that picture, there are not 5 kids. There are only 2 people, the victim and her assistant.
Uh-oh. We might be being stopped here, folks. Oh, okay. Looks like we're okay. My end's getting a little choppy, but I think we're going to be okay. So if you were able to see that over there, I hope we're still connected. You can let me know. 10809. We may have missed a couple important details over there.
Wide trail. That trail was a photograph of the beginning of this attack. And in that picture, there are not 5 kids. There are only 2 people, the victim and her assailant.
Oh man, that's even blurry on my screen. It says that summer, a serial rapist had been terrorizing the Upper East Side. On August 5th, 1989, he was finally caught. Oh, of course, I can read a little better now. His name is Mateus Reyes.
I asked her to get undressed. When she was coming towards me, I picked up the knife. And I shot the knife. And I caught her hair. When she was saying, "Oh, you stabbed me," I don't remember what. I kept on stabbing her, and I don't know in what places I got it. I see her on the floor, shaking, nervous. So I run out the door.
Mateus Reyes was a young man living essentially by himself in his late teenage years. He would steal Walkmans, he would steal watches, he would steal jewelry. Then he started sexually assaulting women, attacking women all around that neighborhood. On April 17th, 1989, just 2 days before the jogger was attacked, he attacked a woman on the northern part of Central Park. But the woman noticed that he had fresh stitches on his chin. And she told the police about this. And a young detective went to the hospitals in the area and found out that there had been a guy named Mateus Reyes who who had these stitches on his chin. That was ignored.
He was the East Side rapist that we've been covering in the Daily News. And one of the police officers who's working on the Jogger case and also working on one of the rapes that Reyes has been accused of has the DNA markers in both files.
Detective Mike Sheehan, he knew, because he was working with Linda Fairstein and Elizabeth Lederer and all the other detectives, he knew that there was no DNA match to these young Central Park Five.
And at this point, this is only 4 or 5 months after. Not only, I'm sure, hellish for the boys and the community as well, but I'm saying as opposed to what it turned out to be.
The only real evidence the prosecutors have is the evidence the defendants gave them. Hours of graphic videotape confessions.
What is particularly disturbing about this case, and about so many other cases like it, is that once that confession is taken, and once that confession is in the air, it corrupts everything else. And confessions will trump DNA. Confessions will change witnesses' testimony. Confessions are irresistibly persuasive, and almost the effects can't be reversed.
Screening for jurors began today in a case that shocked New York and jolted the nation.
Prosecutors are expected to call 50 witnesses, possibly including the victim herself.
Though she has no memory of the attack, prosecutors expect her to testify. Her mere appearance would pack an emotional punch for the prosecution's case.
In the back of my mind, I knew he wasn't going to beat this case. It was in the paper too much. Too many people were against us. Everybody washed their hands from us. And I felt like people accepted whatever happened to us. It was like, whatever happens to those kids, forget them.
My father, as the trial came, he left me and my mother, disappeared. I couldn't understand, and I hated him after that.
He just said his father, when the trial came, disappeared. Didn't stand in his corner like the man is supposed to. He was there. And Antron also, like I said at the beginning, you're not going to see much of him through here. He's the one that didn't really do the media circuit as much. And the few interviews that he has done about this, the hatred was still there for his father after the ordeal.
Me and my mother started going to court by ourselves. Demonstrators, people just shouting, rapists, animals, deserve to be alive. It just felt like the whole world hated us.
The amazing thing to me in meeting him.
What's up, Steph? Was it Steph? You there? Whoops. Maybe I didn't. No, there you are.
I just wanted to say two things real quick about the DNA not matching and then them changing the theory really quick to include an extra guy, right?
Yeah.
Like, never said that for months. It was these 5 dudes. We know it. That's what they confessed to. That's the only thing we got. But all of a sudden, there's a 6th guy. There's got to be a 6th guy. Hey,
Magical guy.
magical dude, right? The other 5 didn't mention this guy. You never mentioned this guy. Right, all of a sudden, now there's got to be a guy. And let me tell you, they do this all the time.
And the thing is, the ball has already been rolling, snowballing. So this is an easy addition.
Yeah.
For us on the sidelines here, it's like, what the fuck? This is crazy. But if you let the machine already work and affect you the way it's supposed to back then, it doesn't seem so magical back then. It's like, of course,
Like I said, but now they're doing this. And even now, I know cases pending right now where all of a sudden there's a magical dude.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So they're still doing this shit. They're still doing this shit. It's like the police never said there was a magical dude, and all of a sudden now, because you don't got a DNA match, there's got to be an accomplice. There's got to be.
Yeah. Just
And
all sorts of just terrible things with this. The DNA they didn't find, even the scene itself where they see the dragging in the footsteps
Yep.
of only one person.
Yep. Yeah. And and I was gonna also say about the death penalty. Donald Trump is an idiot. I mean, let's just be real. He's a dumbass.
Yeah.
New York had the death penalty at this time.
Mm.
But it wasn't to bring it back, it was to expand it to include people who didn't do anything as far as homicide.
Yes.
Cases that fell short of homicide, that's what he was talking about, right? And in Coker v. Georgia in 1977, the Supreme Court found that no other offenses besides homicide could be subject to the death penalty because it was so racially arbitrary.
Yeah.
That was the basis of their decision to not allow sex assault to be punished by possibly punished by the death penalty.
Yeah.
Because they found that no defendants in the South who were white were getting the death penalty, only black men.
Yeah.
And so they found it just all across the board. You could not give the death penalty. States could not legislate to allow the death penalty to do that. It was unconstitutional, still is.
Yeah.
And yet Donald Trump is up here saying, bring back the death penalty. How many of these people walking around do you think thought that New York did not have a death penalty?
Yeah.
It did. It wasn't used very often, but it did. But just like all across the rest of the country, it could not have been applied to these boys, yes, at the time. And constitutionally, the Supreme Court would not have allowed it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so, he's just sitting here fooling the people, revving them up, about something that politically, I mean, he does it to this day, right? He says he wants all these things that are unconstitutional all the time.
Yeah.
And then also I wanted to say about the father not being there. I don't know his mind, and I'm not going to judge the man because I don't know his mind. But I will say that any case I try, which I've tried dozens, any case I try, I do everything I can to have a family member there, or at least someone who looks like they might be a family member there during the trial.
I think I remember you saying this before too. Yeah.
Yeah, because if the jury just gets the impression that nobody gives a damn that this person is on trial, they are going to say, I don't have a damn about this person either. Nobody else does.
Yeah.
So, and it can also, especially with black defendants, it can give off all these stereotypes about how, well, the father was probably never in his life anyway, blah, blah, blah. And so, I always, even if the parents aren't available, I try to get, a family member, a sister, a cousin, somebody, who could sit there the whole time. And so the jury's at least seeing that somebody cares about this guy or woman.
Good. And respect to the mother, just being there as a partner. Look, you see the way she's pulling him through the crowd. You know what I'm saying? Do that. Like your husband, your man couldn't do that. Your father couldn't do that. Like he washed his hands just like the public did, on him too. How tragic and terrible. What with respect to that lady, man. That is crazy stuff. Just look at the way they're walking through that fury. What that must have been like.
Yeah.
And
even the news is reporting that all they got are children's confessions. Even the news is reporting that. The same news that galvanized all these people against these boys is the same news that's reporting that the state don't got nothing.
Yeah.
Wild. It's and it hasn't. Unfortunately, it hasn't changed all that much. Unfortunately, it hasn't changed all that much.
Not much has. Not much. Yeah.
So, anyway, that's all I wanted to say. I'm gonna drop down.
All right, appreciate it. Take care, Steph. Whew. Yeah, this is all of that. Thank you, Stephanie, for coming up, and a lot of the same comments here and the clarification that this is tough. Yeah, Manuel. I'm here thinking about the father too. Let me just put it back a little bit to see how this mother is maneuvering charging through this crowd with your son. What? And this demographic coming from a poor neighbor, not having the backup. Look at these two, soldier on. Respects, man.
Me and my mother started going to court by ourselves. Demonstrators, people just shouting, rapists, you animal, you deserve to be alive. It just felt like the whole world hated us.
The amazing thing to me in meeting Antron was that he was the exact opposite of the way he was portrayed in the news. He is a timid, calm, non-aggressive individual, not anything as he was portrayed.
In her opening argument, the prosecutor made it clear their own words would be the main evidence against the first three defendants.
Where were you standing?
I was on the side of Kevin.
Were you watching?
No, I was grabbing the 80 tickets.
It was very hard not to believe those confessions.
What was Anton doing to her clothes?
Trying to pull them off.
It seemed genuine. These confessions seemed genuine. They didn't seem like they were rehearsed or made up or anything.
I think that Raymond lied. It'll come out that Raymond lied. He was lying when he was being asked questions by the district attorney. And I think that will be made out, that will come out very graphically in my cross-examination tomorrow.
Yusuf Salam didn't make tape statements, but police say he verbally admitted beating the female jogger with a lead pipe while others climbed on top of her.
Bobby Burns, he was a friend of my mom's. He was originally a divorce lawyer. I thought he was a nice guy, but at one point in time, I remember looking over at him, and I thought he was sleeping. Mentally, physically, It was draining, not knowing what's going on, seeing these people get on the stand. Nobody actually saying you did it.
Show me for one moment anything related to his being anything other than innocent. Yusuf is innocent.
In case you didn't get that, the mother is a more outspoken one there, seems to have a little more education as well. But if you didn't hear what the crowd was chanting as they were going by, they were chanting, "No more Scottsboro boys." That might be another documentary we might have to check out before too long. Here we go.
No justice! No justice! No justice!
There had been charges of racism that authorities...
To stop again, how many of us remember this Al Sharpton? Crying out loud. This is how I remember Al Sharpton back in the 80s and whatnot. But, my little 2 cents about the Sharptons and these people, these Crumps, I think they're definitely needed somewhat. We don't always like the way that they come across or how they represent, but they do have a wedge in a lot of these cases with different elite groups where they're able to get some of these messages across. I don't always agree. I'm not saying that. I'm not jumping on the bandwagon with them. We could certainly have better representation, and sometimes we do. But sometimes we have this as well. We need somebody that's loud enough and has the notoriety enough. Sometimes he's right. Sometimes he's been wrong. But here he is with this one.
Authorities aggressively pursued the case because the victim is white and the suspects black and Hispanic.
Meantime, a group of people came to demonstrate for the female jogger and against a regular cadre of protesters who have suggested that the jogger's boyfriend raped her.
Well, all people should be outraged about this, not any particular race. We need to remember that this was a human being, and that people need to support that.
Yesterday, Mayor David Dinkins also condemned the regular protesters who even jeered at the injured jogger the day she testified. She walked with an unsteady gait, clutched the railing as she stepped into the witness stand. Her scars were evident, but she spoke clearly in a strong, sweet voice.
She was a miracle now at this point. She couldn't contribute anything to the actual case because thankfully she couldn't remember. But the fact of her being on this stand galvanized the public around her and against these young boys.
Man. I was just like, just sitting there, just looking like, man, I would hope this lady could remember. You know, I'm like, why she can't remember? Messed up what happened to her, but I didn't do it.
With the prosecution resting its case in the final hour today, the defense begins its case tomorrow, starting with the parents of Antron McCray.
My strategy was obviously to try to convince the jury that the statements were not accurate, were the product of coercion, should be inadmissible, and were not credible. But when they testified in court, the police officers said all we did is ask them what happened. That seemed to me to be incredible. They also denied that they ever made any promises whatsoever. They denied even knowing Antron was a suspect.
Even though he had asked him to tell the truth no matter what, and to bring the clothes he was wearing and all kinds of stuff that made it perfectly obvious that he was a suspect, he said he didn't think of him as a suspect. That was just nonsense. Some of the detectives were obviously lying through their teeth.
The lawyers in the case had another defense, which is they had alibis. They were not where the jogger was when she was attacked. Why? They were beating up other people. That alibi defense was not offered.
The only evidence against Yusuf was the testimony of McKenna, the detective, and Burns absolutely undercut Yusuf in the most terrifying way. He put into evidence the notes of McKenna, which hadn't been put into evidence before. And that was the only evidence against Yusuf.
There was one part during trial, I think Peter Rivera, my lawyer, he woke up. And they were talking about the statements, of how the statements were coerced by the police. I remember him reading something, and I heard him whisper it. He didn't say it loud, but he sat next to me and he said, "They didn't do it." And I heard him say that, and I said, "All right, well maybe now he gonna fight," but it was too late.
Isn't that crazy? Isn't that crazy? It just to even have that detail in there. So again, he's sitting there. Now the lawyer, he may have not have been convinced before, but something he read over there made him for sure say, "No, they didn't do this. They really didn't do it." And now you being a kid, now you might have whatever fraction of a little piece of faith that you may have had lifted for a second, but briefly for that moment.
No blood on the kids. Nobody could identify
To be taken
them.
away.
It was just a question of believing the confessions or not. And it was very hard to imagine why anybody would make up something that not only incriminates them, but is full of details that sound like they actually happened.
It got to one point where they pulled me, Yusuf, and Antron in the conference room, and the lawyer says, we're gonna lose this case. What we're planning to do is see if we can get you a plea deal.
And I remember telling them, you guys can cop out, but if I did something, I would cop out. I would want the least amount of time for what I did. But if I didn't do anything, you can give me the rest of my life in prison. I didn't know what that meant back then, but I just knew that there would be no way that I would cop out to something that I didn't do.
They said, well, it has to be all three of you guys, or it's nobody. And so we looked at each other. We was like, well, guess it's nobody.
Coming out, roll.
The crimes and the colors in this case have been a focus of attention here for more than a year. It will now be up to a jury to decide the guilt or innocence of the defendants. John McKenzie, ABC News, New York.
It is day 10 of deliberations, and the jogger jury appears to be going back to what they were thinking about on day 1. Were those damaging videotape confessions coerced by cops overeager to solve the case?
Each day that the jury remained out, I started to get a little more optimistic.
People were shocked. What's taking them so long? They confessed to it.
I was going nuts, quite frankly. I mean, everyone was blaming the fact that we were there so long on me. And I had to in the 3, but it didn't matter to them. If they confessed, and that was that. Everyone's hurling imprecations at me and telling me what a rat I am. And I just went along with it at the end because, frankly, I was wiped out. I found some cockamamie excuse to vote guilty just to get out of there.
When the verdict came out, they brought us out. The courtroom was packed. As they started to read, everything kind of got numb.
I remember standing there and they found me guilty. That's when the world just collapsed.
My whole insides dropped. Just like, this is crazy. Are you kidding me? Like, I couldn't believe it at all.
I couldn't hear nothing after that. I just sat down. I looked back at my mom and she was crying. That was it.
One of my friends had a radio, and then I heard it.
Guilty, guilty, guilty on rape, robbery, riot, and assault.
Tears came out of my eye. Yeah, I was mad.
16-year-old McRae clenched his jaw and brushed away tears. 15-year-old Santana looked wide-eyed ahead, while Salam stared at the jurors, then back at the courtroom. Pure anguish.
Antron leaned over to me and said, "Thank you very much for all of your efforts." That's not something that you see from clients in general.
Isn't that crazy?
And certainly not something you would expect to see from a young man. And I truly appreciated it.
I just looked at him, I was like, thank you for helping me. He did his best. He did his best, in my eyes.
They took me out first. They asked for my belt, they asked for my laces.
Indeed.
And then Yusuf and Antron came out like a little bit after me. And then we cried. We cried inside the bullpen. We didn't, it was like, you didn't want to show them that, because you didn't want them to see defeat. So, we did it when we went in the back.
The defendants' families left the courtroom quickly, in tears. They left without their teenage sons.
Law and order in the nation's largest city seemed to
Disgusting.
get a boost tonight as the first 3 youths to be tried in the Central Park jogger case were found guilty of gang rape and brutal assault and robbery.
You're pleased with the verdict. How much of a help have your detectives been to you during this case?
They've been the best. They're terrific.
Were you concerned about the lack of genetic evidence? A lot of people made a big deal about that none of the semen from the defendants matched.
Yeah, let's just take a moment to even think about that character. His father abandoned him mid-trial, that fucker. He sat there, composed, like his attorney said, everything opposite of how he was painted in the media. Loses a trial, knows exactly what the hell this means. Described as clenching his jaw, wiping away a tear. Looks over and says, thank you. And even in the interview saying he did his best, he did what he could. Jesus, man, that his mother, that lady, that woman, really props, because it sure as hell wasn't the man at that time, And now we turn to this cold-hearted reptilian individual who knew what she was doing, right? Any two will do with this one.
That was kind of a job. I think because there's another trial, it's better not to discuss the evidence.
How do you feel about the prospect of another trial?
I think I could use a vacation before we
Are
start.
you going to give it to her?
I'm going to give it to her.
In case you can't see, Antron McCray, Yusuf, and Raymond were each found guilty on 7 counts, including the rape and assault of her name's Trisha Malay, and the assaults on 2 men that night. Because they were juveniles, the 3 were sentenced to 5 to 10 years, the maximum allowed by law. Two months later, October 1990, Kevin and Corey went to trial. So even having it separately
They
is
offered me a plea.
problematic.
And I said I would never plea to him. But I was innocent and that we're going to through. It was just really a circus. At this time, I was 16 now. So it was already 2 years of going through that.
I'm just going from Rikers Island back and forth, going through this court thing like it's a job. Her only argument on me is my confession tapes.
You didn't hold her legs down?
I hold her leg down for what? 5 seconds. So I'm looking at this like, that's me? Is that me? She using me against me.
16-year-old Kevin Richardson has been quiet through most of the trial, but his mother has not.
He was set up. He was set up.
Richardson's attorney says he won't claim his client's taped confession was coerced. Instead, he'll argue Richardson was with the gang but never took part in any of the crimes. Wise attorney said he'll try to show the confessions were coerced.
By putting him under continuous pressure for 1 hour and 24 minutes after he had been interrogated for over 24 hours. That amounts to pressure.
I was asked from my lawyer, Colin Moore, do I want to testify? And the DA, she came up there tearing me apart. I had wanted to get up and say, woman, you don't know me. You talk like you know me. You don't know me.
Reporters were running and people were running. And we were like, what's going on? And somebody said the verdict is in.
The first thing I heard was guilty. And everything else was just like fading out.
The judge said, how do you find guilty, assault, riot, and sexual abuse? So that was it.
I remember being handcuffed right on the spot. And that's when I felt completely alone. Because, you know, before I had my family at least supporting me. You know, at that point, once the gates closed, and I was in a cell, and I just thought I thought my life was pretty much over.
Outside the courthouse, supporters of the 2 teenagers erupted with violent emotion. Inside, 16-year-old Kevin Richardson cried loudly. His mother screamed, "We love you," and collapsed, later to be taken to a hospital. 18-year-old Kerry Wise shouted racism as he was led from court. The prosecutor was taken from court under heavy guard as an angry crowd swirled around her. This was a second trial in the Jogger case. Last summer, 3 teenagers were convicted of rape and assault and are now serving their juvenile terms.
See if I get that over there. Hang on. Kevin Richardson was found guilty of 8 counts, including the rape and attempted murder of Trisha Miley, and was sentenced to 5 to 10 years, same as the others. Corey, they spelled his name wrong in the news, I don't know if you saw that, was convicted of 3 counts, including the sexual abuse but not rape of Trisha. Because he was 16, he was sentenced as an adult to 5 to 15 years.
This is the test Mayor Koch had laid out. He was out of office now, but people felt the system had passed.
I went to maximum security for juveniles. Me and Yusuf Salam, we wound up being in the same place. I remember saying that we just have to stay strong together and try to get through this together, because all we have is each other right at this point.
In the beginning, it was very hard because they perceived me as this was a rapist, and he committed one of the most heinous crimes in New York State history.
You could be the most peaceful person, but then you come to the point where you have to defend yourself to avoid possibly being beaten or worse, even, killed. So I had to adjust to that environment, and basically I had to grow up really fast.
And don't get it twisted, jail, prison, they got their own hierarchy in there as well, right? And like they've been saying all along, they're on the lowest of the low. Any of the molesters, child molesters, or rapists get it the worst, whatever that means. So they're really rightfully so ambiguous about anything they went through while they've been in there. The movie, the one from Netflix, kind of insinuated a couple things, the way that it was played out. But you got to picture that too. Even the prisoners may have punished them quite a bit for these crimes they didn't commit.
People dying over cigarettes. It's real crazy.
Why me cursed God out a couple of times? My faith was gone. I lost that. Just my faith was gone, and I didn't know what to do.
My father came once in a while. He apologized to me, but I didn't accept it. My mother came a lot. I mean, sometimes I had to tell her to stay home because the weather be so messed up. She'd still come.
When I heard that my dad had passed, it was hurting. It was hurting, and I would think, surely think he drunk himself to death. What they call that, cirrhosis of the liver. But no one shared it with me or gave me the chance to come down. So I just learned it, and that was that. That was that.
But as time passed, I started to make changes. I was able to get my GED. I was able to get a degree. I got an associate's.
I jumped on an opportunity to go to college. It was a real graduation. The dean and everybody.
I was able to get a college degree before they took education out of prison.
They stopped the program, so I didn't get a degree. After that, I just started doing trades and stuff like that. Like I worked in a tail shop. That was like the highest paid job in prison. So I think it's like 30 cents an hour.
47 degrees.
In New York, Republican Rudolph Giuliani defeated incumbent David Dinkins.
Mayor Dinkins' hand. Of the approaches to
acts of noise and aggressive panhandling.
Crime has plunged 33% from the same month a year ago.
Since 1990, homicides have fallen dramatically in New York.
New York City is no longer a crime capital.
I came up to parole, and my hearing lasted a couple of minutes. I walked in. They said who I was. He looked at the time that I've been in and realized that I haven't gotten into no trouble the whole time. They just wanted to know one thing. They said, "Did you do the crime?" I said, "No." They told me, "Have a good day."
Whew. See what this is saying for you guys. Without an expression of remorse, we know this already. Without an expression of remorse, parole is unlikely for the Central Park Five. Nonetheless, maintain their innocence. We know that. Oops. Antron, Kevin, Yusef, Raymond, each served almost 7 years before conditionally being released. And little Corey is in there. Rikers. Remember that.
Got my stuff, my personal stuff. Had my money in my account, and he took me to the bus stop. Called my mother. Every stop we made, want to know where I was at. Just looking around like, wow, I'm free. Got home. I forgot the building I lived in because all the buildings look alike. I went in the wrong building. My mother and my father ran downstairs.
The day he was actually released, he said, "They're sending me home on a bus." We're like, "Nope, we're coming to get you."
And of course, my family was crying, which made me start to cry. And everybody jumped up. We jumped for joy. And we got in the car. And we sped off and never looked back. And we drove. It was about 3 hours from the city. And we went straight, like not even stopping. Beautiful.
Look how he remembers that. Just
when I was released,
man, that must have been something.
Best feeling in the world. I said, wow. I got a fresh start. I can try to put my life back together.
Yeah, he came home. And I was happy he's home, all that.
But, I brung a lot of stuff with me, that I didn't even know exists. I loved to stay inside my room because my room was like the size of a cell. I would go in the shower and wash my boxes in the shower. I had this aggression. If I'm in a room with too many people, I can talk to you, but I won't give you eye-to-eye contact because I'm too busy watching the room.
When I got home, my father, he was living, with my mother. Guess they was back together. But I didn't talk to him. We lived in the same house, but I didn't even talk to him. I know he's getting sick because he lost a lot of weight. He's real sick. I didn't even care. My mother was trying to get us to talk. I was just like, you don't remember what he did to us? He left you.
Oh, I just need to. You need to let that sink in, man. So while he was gone, locked up, his parents got back together. He gets released. Now he has no choice but to go back in that house with the man that abandoned the family at its roughest time, the whole system against you. Maybe the mom needed support. Who knows? I can't really blame her. I can't really say what a woman would be going through at that time. But Antron sure didn't forget. We'll forgive.
My mother got that call. And she was like, your father just passed away. I still was like, all right. But And seeing him laying there just hit me. You know, he used to be my best friend.
I was a sex offender.
I know I was talking through that. You need
I know
to
he's getting sick. He lost a lot of weight.
I had this aggression.
bring that back, and I'm going to shut up.
You know, if I'm in a room with too many people, I can talk to you, but I won't give you eye-to-eye contact because I'm too busy watching the room.
Whew.
When I got home, my father, he was living, you know, with my mother. I guess they was back together. But I didn't talk to him. We lived in the same house, but I didn't even talk to him. I know he's getting sick 'cause he lost a lot of weight. He's real sick. I didn't even care. My mother used to try to get us to talk. I was just like, you don't remember what he did to us? You know, he left you. My mother, you know, got that call. And she was like, your father just passed away. I still was like, all right.
Damn, man.
And seeing him laying there just hit me. You know, he used to be my best friend.
God damn, man. Used to be my best friend. God
I was a
damn.
sex offender, labeled as that. And I had to register every month. I applied for the post office at one point, and I was about to get the job. But I'm an honest person, so they asked me, have I ever been incarcerated? I put yes. And they didn't hire me.
I just wanted to get out of New York. I had a cousin that lived in Maryland. I kind of liked Maryland. Went out there job hunting for the whole day. And on the spot, I got a sanitation job.
Months went by where I didn't have no money, and there's nothing I could do. I can't get a job. I was becoming a burden. You know, here I am in my father's house. I'm eating the food, you know, 'cause I'm a bigger guy and I'm not contributing. I said, I can't function. That was my breaking point. And so I said, you know what? I'm gonna get in the drug game. And I started to sell drugs.
Oh, let me see if I can catch that. In 1998, Raymond was arrested for dealing drugs. As a prior felon, he was sent back to prison for 3.5 to 7 years, longer than if it had been his first offense. Fuck.
All of the jogger defendants have gone home except one, Corey Weiss. He was the eldest of the group convicted, and he had the longest sentence. And he had stopped going to the parole board, didn't even bother going anymore to deny his guilt. One day in late 2001, Mateus Reyes meets him at the Auburn prison.
This was the first time they had seen each other since 1989, when both of them were at Rikers Island. And at that time, they had a little incident in the TV room, and it almost, you know, escalated to blows.
He said, I would like to apologize to you. You know, we had a fight, Rikers Island, about the TV, so forth. So I said, it ain't about nothing, man. We here. It's not gonna free neither one of us. Don't worry about it.
Reyes doesn't say anything to him, but he starts talking to people in the prison. Hey, I met somebody who's doing time for a crime that he didn't have anything to do with that I did myself. They send up an investigator and takes his statement. They send it down to the Manhattan DA, are stored by everybody except the people involved. Is suddenly going to come back to life.
I showed her the top of the entrance, the direction she came by. I showed her where I picked up the tree branch, and down the road where I dragged the bench. I'm the one that did this. When I saw Kerry Rice in Auburn, and I saw in his eyes, you know, the suffering that he's been going through To know that a man has suffered 13 years of his life in jail for something that he has not done. To know that all these kids got arrested for something that they didn't do. You want to know something? I've done everything possible that I can come forward and admit the truth. I'm to the point where people don't do something or they don't do what's right, and hey, there's nothing else I can do.
To hear this, after all the trials and tribulations that I've done been through, the scuffle, the jumping on, the stabbing, the whole unneeded package, it felt so good.
Morgenthau's office begins an exhaustive re-examination of the case, and they pulled out the old files, and they found the unknown semen from the rape kit, and they matched Reyes.
Some bullshit.
And they began to interview Reyes.
Reyes steps in 13 years later and immediately gives off details that turn out to be verified and accurate that the police didn't know.
He described her as having black running tights on and a white T-shirt. That's what Miss Mealy was wearing.
He tells them about the Walkman. Turns out she did run with a Walkman. Nobody knew it because it wasn't found at the scene.
He describes how he took off her sneakers. When the police came on the scene and they found her sneakers were one sneaker was in one location, another sneaker was in another location.
He talked about taking her keys and trying to get her address and then tossing the keys. Well, that explained the dilemma about where her key was because her door was locked.
These were details that even the most assiduous student of the case would have had a hard time coming up with as some kind of fake story. There was no question that Reyes knew what had happened.
And his DNA was present on the scene, and the way in which he committed this crime was perfectly consistent with the way he committed other crimes. It stands to reason that Reyes was giving an accurate statement.
I worked the third shift. It was from 8 to 6:30 in the morning. I got home, got out the shower, about to watch Sports Center. And my cousin called. She like, Tron turned on CNN. I'm like, wow, what's going on? She said, the truth came out. Like, truth came out. What are you talking about? Your case. Somebody that did it. He told the truth. He confessed. He did it. And I'm like, are you serious? Are you serious? And I just started crying.
DNA evidence conclusively connects Reyes to the victim. My son called me on Saturday, and I said, I want you to sit down. I got news for you. And he said, what news you got for me? Get a chair and sit down, I'm gonna tell you.
He says, oh, they found the guy that did it. And I said, what? And he says, yeah, they found the guy that committed your case. And I said, I got to curse. I said, get the fuck out of here. And he said, no, for real. They found the guy. You're going to be coming home soon. And I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. He's the only one that had the hope. And I'm like, you know what? I'll talk to you later. It started raining outside. And I'm looking out the window. I'm like, damn, did they really find this dude? And I'm thinking about this, then I start crying.
There was a motion by the defense to overturn the convictions on the grounds of newly discovered evidence. And Morgenthau not only said that the new evidence likely would have led to a different verdict, he said to me, and he said to others, if we knew then what we know now, we wouldn't have indicted these guys.
But you did.
My faith in Robert Morgenthau is such that I don't quarrel with his decision.
This is step one. The response from the district attorney's office has been to concede or agree or consent to our application that the verdicts be set aside. The judge has to make a formal ruling in that regard. We expect for that ruling to be made forthwith.
I want to share with you a statement from District Attorney Robert Morgenthau's office. The office said, a comparison of the statements reveals troubling discrepancies. The accounts given by the 5 defendants differed from one another on the specific details of virtually every major aspect of the crime. Who initiated the attack, who knocked the victim down, who undressed her, who struck her, who held her, who raped her, what weapons were used in the course of the assault, and when in the sequence of events the attack took place. And some of what they said was simply contrary to established fact. Now, this is a damn shame.
I have an application at this time on behalf of all of the defendants, Corey Wise, Yusef Salaam, Kevin Richardson, Ramon Santana, and Antoine McCray, that all the indictments against each one of them in their entirety be dismissed.
Motion is granted. Everyone have a very Merry Christmas, Happy New Year.
The judge handling the review of the Central Park jogger case has just ruled in the last hour that those convictions against the 5 young men must be set aside. It is a stunning reversal in one of the most controversial crime cases in the city's history.
Simple.
That was the best Christmas ever. Excuse me. Best Christmas gift ever. I mean, my mother, we just hugged each other in our apartment for seemed like forever. It was a beautiful thing. Still is.
I would always see these photos of my mother walking around with a Yusef is innocent shirt. And then when they dropped all the charges, she had her coat open and the Yusef is innocent shirt on and this huge smile on her face like, not only did I told you so, but I'm so happy today.
Now, 4 of the 5 are out. They've served long prison terms, but Raymond Santana remains behind bars on an unrelated conviction. But the length of time that he's serving on a drug charge was based upon the fact that he was a predicate felon, his conviction in the Central Park jogger case. So lawyers close to the case representing the 5 are telling me that they expect to challenge that and try to get Raymond Santana home to his parents before Christmas.
It was a celebration. All the guys jumped around. They were all cheering. You going home, it's over, you going home. The correction officer said, well, you know, it's a lot of people out there. You want to go through the back? I'll get a car for you. You know, you can go out the back way. And I said, well, I'm a free man. I'm going out the front. Open that door, let's go.
Amid a crush of cameras, Raymond Santana left jail a free man, much to his father's joy.
I always believed he was innocent from the beginning.
It took me back to that perp walk that they do. And then now, this time, it was a free man walk. And it was definitely great to walk through that, you know, and hold my head up high. And say, I told you, we were innocent.
This is a miracle. And let me tell you, when I was in that yard, I was saint. I need to pray for him a lot. He said, if your prayer don't come out, it did for me. I pray a lot for that kid. And that was the happy day of my life.
Man, you could see how much pain he went through. Antron's father, karma, whatever you want to call it, man, definitely struck him for doing what he did to his son. This is... Whew.
I felt ashamed, actually, for New York. And I also felt extremely angry because their innocence never got the attention that their guilt did. The furor around prosecuting them still drowns out the good news of their innocence. These were 5 kids who we tormented, we falsely accused, we pilloried in the press, we attacked, we invented phrases for the imagined crimes that we're accusing them of. And then we put them in jail we falsely convicted them. And when the evidence turned out that they were innocent and they were released, we gave a modest nod to fairness.
Mm-hmm.
And we walked away from our crime.
It was a more interesting story when it was all about a white woman that was raped by 5 black boys.
The coverage in 2002 was worse than what had happened in 1989. More resistant to fact. More obstinate about being wrong. The police department commissioned us a panel led by a very distinguished lawyer named Mike Armstrong to review what had happened in the Jogger case. And the police department found that the police department had done nothing wrong, even though it had let
Big surprise, right? Big surprise there.
the right man get away and apparently had put the wrong people in prison. This was institutional protectionism that was going on.
Look at her.
Linda Fairstein made a huge name for herself, in part because of this case. It was extremely important to her profession and her reputation.
Look at you. Disgusting. And still, at the end, I think Reyes ran with that pack of kids, Fairstein says. He stayed longer with the others and moved on. He completed the assault. Doesn't even match up with the facts. How bullheaded and deluded, racist and evil you have to be to still run with that narrative, man.
So she's got a lot to lose by saying,
Damn.
I got everything wrong and I railroaded these kids into jail.
Whatever you do in life, you make mistakes. And you either face your mistakes or you don't. I don't think the press faced its mistakes.
No, not even.
I don't think the police department faced the truth of what had happened, because the truth of what had happened is almost unbearable. By prosecuting the wrong people for the Central Park Jogger case, Mateus Reyes continued to hurt, maim, and kill.
Yes, exactly.
And they could have had him, but they got stuck with a mistake. And they're still invested in that mistake.
Patricia Miley, my brother, all the boys, all of our families, all of us are victims. Nobody wants to look at the damage, the terror that they put my family through. Nobody wants to take responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
I want us to remember what happened that day and be horrified by ourselves, because it really is a mirror on our society.
Mm-hmm.
And rather than tying it up in a bow and thinking that there is something that we can take away from it and we'll be better people, I think what we really need to realize is that we're not very good people.
Mm.
And we're often not.
I'm always behind. Those years that it took for me, I lost a lot. And even now, at the age of 36, where I should be fully in a career, have a house, a car, maybe married, I don't have any of that. So I don't know how to regain that stuff anymore. I'm just here.
I lost my youth. I lost 7 years of my life. I lost that sense of being youthful and missing the average things of going to school and going to the prom. Just living like an average 14, 15-year-old kid.
You can forget, but you won't forget. You won't forget what you done lost. No money could bring that time back. No money could bring the life that was missing with the time that was taken away bring back. Nothing.
It hasn't become easier to live as an adult. It's become harder. It's always more difficult to do something if you have this huge gap of your life taken away from you. And it's not like just because they said, okay, we are vacating the convictions, that vacated the whole prison term. That whole prison term happened. It was a reality. We really went through that.
Mm-hmm.
Still struggle every day. But I made it. You know, came home, didn't get in trouble. Worked ever since I came home. Paid taxes. Take care of my kids. Doing the best I can, so I told him I was gonna make it. Told him. The truth came out. Truth came out.
Whew. Trish completed New York City Marathon, crossing the finish line at Central Park, not far from where she had been attacked. 2003, she revealed her name publicly in the book I Am the Central Park Jogger that detailed her extraordinary recovery. 2003, a year after their convictions were vacated, the Central Park Five filed a civil suit against the city of New York and the police officers and prosecutors who had worked towards their convictions. I don't know why I paused that one. The lawsuit remains unsolved. Well, we know since the movie came out that I don't think everybody was held accountable for it. They did get some money back, which, by any means, not enough for what they had endured. But, we've seen the movie come out and some sort of normalcy for these gentlemen, advocacy as well from what they've been through, which is good to see. But this whole case, and let us not forget that there are many organizations like the Innocence Projects that are necessary because of this type of thing, right? Because of these types of injustices that still occur today. Yeah. Definitely, man. It is tough. And there really are a lot of innocent people behind bars that just get railroaded, that don't have the representation, that don't have the support needed to stay afloat, man. Really have to. And the one that had it the worst, man, I guess you could say, Corey, right? To endure and make it through that. I don't think he's the smallest guy. Just all as tragic as this could possibly be. Damn. This was a heavy one tonight, right? I kind of knew going into it, man, that this was going to be, I wanted to do this one for a while. There's a bunch of shows that I wanted to do. And I guess it was the case of Jocelyn Smith, who also made me remember a lot of the things of getting back to the bases and or basics, I should say, to what I was really wanted to do on air. And, sometimes you got to bring it down. We've had a lot of fun here. We know that, Tiz. We got our fun on here. Josephine, if you're listening too. But, this is why these platforms are important too, to make sure that we never forget about the things. We bring up the Kendrick Johnson, right? The twins that were here. And you better believe, man, I am going to highlight a few more cases in the future, because we need to remember this sort of stuff that could happen, that has happened, so it never happens again. We could walk around a little more protected, protect the others, protect the youth, whew, I'm not gonna lie, that took a lot out of me. But the way that it was done, again, respects to PBS, Ken Burns and Sarah Burns for putting this out here and doing such a conscientious, great justice to this case with the exposure and the detail as well. I remember I didn't even want to see the movie. It's kind of like reading a book of something and then seeing how the movie's never as good as how the book was written. I kind of feel the same with this too, you know. So, you know, not everybody in jail is innocent. We know that. But sometimes not everybody is guilty as well. And we do got to use that critical thinking. It also has something I'd like to say about the energy that we spend. Like they noted in the documentary, how much energy has been used to convict these guys before the actual conviction, how much publicity it got, the full page ad, the fury from Donald Trump, the call for the death penalty. And then when they're found innocent, where's that energy to unearth all of that, to unearth their innocence, the energy that they used to put them in the ground, metaphorically speaking? Where was that energy to bring them back up out of it? You know what I'm saying? Man, it was. Yeah, I think I'm a couple minutes from wrapping this up. I'm very satisfied with how the show went tonight. I thank everybody for your participation, your patience, your interest in the topic. I knew I couldn't do this kind of thing without you guys and the support that you guys have, the interest, the like-minded people, the things we care about, the things we're passionate about. Yes, it's great. And just to even have, you know, the open door in here, you have people like Stephanie come in, you know, able to put things in context and add things to it as well. Definitely appreciate that. Beautiful Bernice, thank you for coming by, showing your support. Who else did we have up on here? YM came up here. It's Kimberly Calhoun in the house as well. We didn't get a Tiz top 3, but that's all right. we stuck to the topic tonight, and I'm sure we're gonna have one next week. Very glad we got to do this. Uh-oh. There's some trouble just when you speak about her. She shows up. Sub JoJo. Man, you missed the show. You missed the show, man. Well, we know you're doing your thing. Happy end of, oh, you know, I don't want to put all your business out there, but I hope you guys are having a good time doing what you're doing. Winkety wink. We had a heavy show today, but it was needed, and I think it was appreciated. It's one of those shows that keep us grounded, you know, keep us on track of what we're doing and making us aware socially, making sure we're stepping in the right direction, taking care of each other like brothers and sisters too. And man, another shout out to Antron McCrae's mother, man, just a strong Black woman. Man, the way she marched through those streets, pulling her son, giving him that pride that he needed too. Shame for the father, but man, that's when you really show what you're made of, man. That was as tragic as this case was. There were some beautiful moments. You gotta say. There were some beautiful moments with that, man. And I'm glad we saw those too, beyond all the tragedy and everything. I'm glad that we saw some of those moments of strength and unity of the family and of the community as well. It shows we don't have them all, but we got a good bunch, man. So respects. And I don't want to be here rambling and all. Definitely appreciate you guys being here. And I hope we got something out of tonight. Like, share, subscribe. Take this with you. Share it with somebody who haven't seen the documentary. Enlighten somebody. Have a discussion about it. It's needed. Have things changed? The more things change, the more they stay the same. Did we learn anything from that? I don't know. Whatever you guys decide to do, man, be safe out there. Definitely appreciate you, man. Be good to each other. Peace, peace.